Hey, welcome back to another Ab Summer Target with the hockey coach Richie directly for the beautiful country of Thailand on amazing great Sunday night, June 29, 2025, the end of the June already. Hopefully, an amazing great weekend, and hopefully, you enjoy the NHL Draft of 2025 because that's what we're going to talk about this tonight on this great show because we'll talk about the rebuild to the team rebuild mode, NHL and the Abs Draft 2025 recap. So we have a lot of talk about this, and that's maybe the time where we're going to talk about the phase number 2 of the Montreal Canadiens, and we're going to recap, of course, what happening for the Montreal. So a lot of talk about tonight, this special edition of the Sunday night, and why not to start the show with someone going to join me for the show tonight, directly from Hawkesbury, the co-host, like you do all the time with us. He was really active on the weekend with the Hockey Nation. He's back in the house, ready to talk about the Montreal Canadiens and the NHL. He is back, Mr. Marco Larrabee is in the house tonight.
All right. Nothing better than entering a room to a round of applause, coach. You know how to treat your guests. Chef's kiss. Very
Here we
nice.
go. And
So finally, I got to.
nothing better with us than when you're on vacation.
Exactly, right? Like, yeah, this is how much I love hockey, coach, is I plan my vacations around the draft, free agency, trade deadline. I waste a lot of my vacation. I don't travel that much, so lots of hockey. Last couple of days, yes, today I got to reconnect with my wife. I hadn't seen her very much in the last 2 days or so.
Yep.
So it's good though. She got to catch up on. So there's certain TV shows that we don't watch together. Like there's certain ones that I don't like. So she gets to watch all the shows that I wouldn't watch, and I did my own thing. So, but it's nice to remember that you have other loved ones living in your house, not glued to your phone, for 20 hours a day, just refreshing your X feed, waiting for the latest thing. So it's good to reconnect. But it's we're still in that in the eye of the storm, coach. Like draft is over, lots of things kind of bubbling underneath the surface. So what a great time to be a hockey fan. And it's silly season, right? Lots of rumors, lots of exciting stuff. So really excited to join. And looks like it should be a fun chat. Look forward to connecting with everyone in the chat tonight for sure.
Definitely, we're going to have a great night all together. Thanks to be with us tonight. Of course, a lot of things happening. The upcoming of the week is coming because tomorrow is the deadline of the offer RFA players. As that's why
Yep.
you recently have a lot of buyout around the NHL the last couple of days. And then after that is a UFA. So there's still the management, the staff is out of the NHL draft, but now they have to focus on the next two things. And that's happening this week, so it will be very quick. And then after that, you have the rookie camp. That's maybe the best way to describe
Yeah.
describe this. So many players on the NHL draft by the each team's going to have a camp this week around the NHL. So going to give you a little bit more information about the Montreal Canadiens, but cover also all of the team and in the NHL. Today we'll talk about the winner, the loser of the NHL draft 2025. But before that, we're going to welcome a few people. We want to first of all to say that thank you for Corey to become a subscriber of the Hockey National Show. We appreciate that. Thanks to be with us also tonight. Alzi Calabro is in the house tonight with Yamo from Finland. Welcome back, Yamo. Thanks to be with us. Hopefully, you had an amazing, great weekend. Always a pleasure to have all of you with us. And then we have Peter August, following by Gary Cornoyer. Finally, Gary, make it. The Hockey National Show, busy with UPS. Missed completely the draft. That's not a fun weekend to do, honestly. Gary,
Got to
but
book
glad to
your
see you
vacation.
around. Yeah,
Got to book your vacation around it, Gary.
I know. Would like to sleep is with us tonight. Billy back in the house. Joseph also send the man with us. The double David. David Day, Cipro, and I think it's the first time. If not, then welcome back. And then we have David Gervais, of course, with us tonight. We have TH with his Islanders. Can wait to hear a little bit more about your information. TH, what you think about the performance of your team the Islanders. Roy from Bangkok is in the house tonight. Sheldon from Winnipeg. We have Peter, like I mentioned to you, stand the man, Sheldon. And let's see what we get a little bit if I miss someone. Samuel, here we go. Samuel is with us. Samuel usually is number one in the chat at the beginning, but a little bit late tonight. So, but glad to see you around. And then we have everybody else in the chat. I think I've mentioned everyone. If I miss you guys, it's not I want to miss you, but it's happening sometimes. So Sam Dean is in the house. Welcome back, Sam. Long time we not see you around. Glad to see you. About that, we have Surf. He's back in the house tonight. Surf, welcome. Audio also. Tommy Myers, followed by Kenneth from Thailand, is in the house. A lot of people in the chat. Any question you have, guys, now is day to talk with us. We're going to talk about different things around the Montreal Canadiens. Drouin is free agent, one in back. Go, Peter. About that one. What do you think about this, Mr. Marco?
Yeah, I'm not sure where you would slot in Jonathan Drouin. I think that experiment, is over, right? Like, I think he performed a lot better when he wasn't under the bright lights of Montreal. So I would be surprised that that's something that materializes at this point. But we always wish the best for Joe, and hope he continues his rebound. Nice couple of years with Colorado. So now up to him and his really funny agent Alan Walsh to find him a new gig somewhere.
You are right about that. Do you feel like he's going to sign somewhere else?
Yeah, like I for sure. I think there's a market for Jonathan Drouin. Like he's about like what 0.75 points per game, on average in his career. So not a point per game player, but we know his warts. Obviously he has a problem kind of playing a full season as well. But listen, I think definitely there's some teams out there that could use a Jonathan Drouin on a second power play unit, on a third line, something like that. So I don't see his career being over. I think he's got at least another 5 to 6 years in the NHL for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, that was interesting what happening with that team. TH talk about the Islanders, talk about different players they got. We'll talk about this the next couple of minutes for sure. And we have a couple of the people knock the door. Sean knocked the door. Welcome back, Sean. We have, I think I missed one of the Gary is also not Gary Cournoyer, but another Gary from Ontario, I believe, is in the house. So welcome all of you. And like we do want Marco and me, sometimes we do the headline. And so we said, Marco, why not to start the headline at the beginning of the show? Maybe talking a little bit more about what's going on. And then after that, we're going to follow up with the NHL news. We have a lot of NHL news, guys. Be ready because it's around the NHL for sure. And let's see what we got here, Mr. Marco. And your first headline is about what?
Well, so what's next won't be easy, right? So not that what they just did at the, acquiring Dobson was easy either, right? But coach, right now, we know kind of what the focus of Hugo is going to be this summer. The number one objective is to find a second line center. But as we've been talking about here, and a lot of people are aware of, so are at least 12 other teams looking for a second line center. So it's not going to be easy. They're certainly going to try. They're going to kind of work the phones and try to be creative to do something. But it's a really, really tough market. But that being said, it's also a very, very tough market to get a top pair right-handed defenseman. And they were able to get that done. So I won't discount the possibility that, Hugo will be able to kind of get something done, but it's not easy, right? Like coach, then that's kind of, I guess, your thumbnail for this episode, right? Is like we've been talking about here for at least since the rebuild started. I think we're one of the only Habs podcasts that had a really good understanding of kind of what the process was going to be, right? Like they were in this asset collection phase, for the last couple of years, and now we're starting to get into that second phase where they're, as we saw with Dobson, where they're going to use some of those chips that they've collected, draft picks, prospects, to start really building out the roster, right? So, so that's the challenge for them. They probably do have a little bit of surgery to do on their fourth line. probably losing Armia and Dvorak unless something really changes. But ultimately, as we know, that's going to be the big goal for the rest of the summer here. And listen, we have tons of conversations that we'll have over the next days, weeks about this, but it's not going to be easy. So, for those of you who are expecting another rabbit out of the hat, I can't say I blame you, right? Like Ken Hughes has been able to produce many rabbits out of his hat. I haven't seen him wear a hat, but I'm sure coach like you, he probably needs to wear a hat if it's really sunny outside because of he's challenged when it comes to his hair follicles. But he might need to kind of pull out another rabbit out of his hat here. But what do you think, coach? Like, do you agree it's a pretty tough market for centers right now?
Yeah, because you have what 25, 27. It was a report I read during the weekend where the other team all have looking the same situation with Montreal Canadiens, but
Yeah.
at the same time, you have many people was looking also for the right defenseman, and they won the sweepcase, the sweepstake of this Thompson situation. So they find a way
Yep.
to go that way. Is it possible he find another way to get
Rabbit.
this? The second
Yeah.
center for, or they go with third option or a transition player. We see what happening there. It's going to be a really busy week, but like you said, it won't be easy. But that's the process, right, of the rebuild to the rebuild team mode, like I mentioned to you in the title of the subject, where the Montreal Canadiens are on transitioning from a accumulate asset to move now to accumulate a roster players. So it will be really interesting what they're going to do the next couple of weeks if they're going to start the season with a new center number 2 or maybe another center number 3 inside of this organization for the Montreal Canadiens. But like you said, the cost will be also involved with what you have to give in return. At some point, we cannot keep all the rookies or the prospect Marco inside of this organization. We have to sacrifice some of them, and sometimes will be the player they already in the lineup. Maybe a new hook, a Matheson, or any other players inside that. If you want to get the next level, Florida did it, others did it, and many other teams did it, and they have to do
Yep.
it at some point. This is what you just mentioned, the phase number 2, phase number 3, whatever you want to call it. And it's not
Yep.
easy. It's complicated sometimes, but you have to sacrifice to get what you want to looking for.
100%.
So
Yep.
we have a few people in the chat knock the door. We have also Jazz knock with us, Audio Murphy. Sean, welcome back also. A lot of conversation in the chat. If the ad cannot trade for a second, can Beck or Kapanen be giving a chance, Marco?
Yeah, I see Tommy also kind of had a similar question there. So for those of you who have kind of followed us here, like, I've made it known, like, I think that would be a mistake. You can choose to do that. Like, you can certainly decide to run with Kapanen or Beck or both, in that bottom six. But what you should expect is maybe a bit of a decline, year over year, if that's going to be the case. Like, you can't underestimate the value that Dvorak had winning those key faceoffs and the penalty kill. Like we talked a little bit about this when I popped in after the draft, coach, that the one of the biggest underrated thing for Montreal last year was the strength of their PK. It wasn't like top 10 in the league, but it was still pretty good, and it came up with some really big penalty kills at key minutes. So if you see Montreal's, let's say you have Beck and Kapanen taking defensive zone draws, and things like that, and they just don't have the same impact that Armia and Dvorak had. Even if your percentage of penalty kill goes down even by 2%, it could really have impact on where they finish in the standings, right? So for me, similar to the Kovacevic situation that we had last year, a lot of I think PLW is probably the most vocal person in our community here about how that was a mistake. He recognized right away that by trading away Kovacevic, they just assumed that Barron or Mayu or Reinbacher will be able to kind of jump in and take that role, and they weren't able to do it. And guess what happened? Like, they really struggled for the first part of the year, and then they were able to go out and trade for Carrier, which really filled a big hole. So for me, I would, when it comes to the center position, I would much rather. Listen, there's a lot to like about Beck and Kapanen. I just want to see them earn that spot. I would much rather sign somebody. Like I've been very vocal. I would have re-signed Dvorak if the number was it was okay. Now it's going to be tough because there's less centers. I think it's going to be harder and harder for them to find them at a good number. But I would much prefer that they get an experienced guy. I'm not saying like a huge contract, but something that can be there to start. And then at the end of the day, if Beck or Kapanen can steal that person's job, awesome. That's what you want to see. But just don't assume that they're going to take that spot. That's kind of where I stand with Beck and Kapanen.
Great comment about that. We'll finish with the headline. Mine is about the Habs summer. A great start. It's happening Friday when they signed Noah Thompson. They have a lot of things behind that transaction. First of all, they fixed the right side of the position for the Montreal Canadiens. I think they learned also, Marco, from happening last season. I think they gave away Kovacevic and thinking they're going to have cover anyway with
Yeah.
Rebecca or Mayu or from the inside organically, right? It did not happen. So I think they said now they learn about this and go to get Thompson to fix that position, first of all. Secondly, they get 9 defensemen right now, 8 defense. I think 8 or 9 defensemen now with Thompson inside of that. And they were not going to trade only for trade to open a spot. I think they will be very careful a little bit more during the summer for the upcoming season to keep that core we have. And the like you said, this is phase number 2, and it was not easy. They have 2 positions they have to fill up, and they start with the fill the right defenseman because the opposite was there. They are patient. They're not going to push everything. If it's not happening, they will be fine with that, and that's the plan they have for the upcoming season. So if the fans are thinking or they have to do it if they want to make the playoff, this is not what they're thinking that way. I think they said, what I heard, I could be wrong, but they want to be sure if the opportunity is there and they can make that transaction to helping the team to get better on the roster, they will do it. It could be a winger, it could be a center. Of, that's what they're looking for, a center. But I think this is a great start of the summer for the Montreal Canadiens. I think the fans, most of the fans was happy to see that transaction, Marco, before the beginning of the NHL Draft 2025. And I think this is a good transaction to get a young prospect, 25 years old, established now for the last 5 seasons in the NHL. And now we're going to see what he will look like inside of that, inside of this organization. Plus, you have to remember, a little bit like happened with Alex Guerrier last year. Guerrier filled a spot in the chair. He take a chair, fit inside of that room. And that's what I think Thompson is going to do. He will fill a chair and fit inside of that room also. Now they have to fill up other chair. But I think this is a great start for the Montreal Canadiens. So I would like to hear from you what you feel about that transaction, about the starting of the summer with Noah Thompson.
Well, after being eliminated, Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon, they had a shopping list, I'm sure, right? They had a priority list of things that they'd like to address. And I wouldn't be surprised if this was at least number 2 on their list after second line center. And this is a big building block, right? Like Noah Dobson, guys, now you can consider him part of Montreal's core, right? Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky, Demidov, Gouli, and Dobson. We'll see what happens with Fowler. We hope that Fowler will be part of that. But Dobson is now part of Montreal's core. So whenever you can add somebody to your core that's right in the same age range as all the other players that you're building up, it's a tremendous win. And, I think, it's been a couple of days now. I think everybody was surprised. Not to say that it was, they didn't give Dobson away, like still 2 first-round picks and Heineman as well. But ultimately, they didn't have to really give away any of their roster players. They didn't have to give away any of their blue chip prospects in adding that huge building block to their team. So to me, like anything else, right? Like let's use this example, right? So I'm on vacation this week, right? So I have a couple of projects that I want to do. Like you on vacation, there's a couple of things, maybe house projects that you want to do. So a great way to start is look at the hardest thing that you need to do and tackle that first on your list. And then, the rest of your vacation and the rest of your list doesn't look as complicated, right? Like it takes a lot of stress off your planning because you've already been able to achieve one of the things on your list. So for Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon, even if they are unable to kind of go get that second line center and really improve their top six this summer, I think for the most part, the fans are still going to call this offseason a success, right? Because there's no question that Noah Dobson is a huge piece that's going to, stabilize that right side. And I think you're right, coach. Like, it does give them the ability to be more patient with Reinbacher and Mayu. I still have a feeling that Reinbacher could, maybe make the team out of camp. Like we've talked about before, um, coaches like players that are predictable, right? So uh, I wouldn't use that word to describe Mayu out there. But Reinbacher, I think, has the ability to play a very simple game, go out in camp, not complicate things, just do his job. He's not going to need to kind of like, have a huge impact in camp. I think if he can prove to Martin Saint Louis that he can do his job, be in position, have a good gap, be in the right place and do simple plays, and that's the strength of Reinbacher's game. So I wouldn't be surprised if Reinbacher makes the team out of camp. It depends how good of a camp he has. But if he doesn't, it's not a huge deal because you have Noah Dobson there. You can continue to play, Hudson on the right for now with somebody like Matheson until, Reinbacher maybe gets a little bit more seasoning or whatever, right? So, so you're right, coach. Like, if you could ask us, like, after the season ended, if we'd be happy with Montreal getting a top pair right-handed defenseman that was 25 years old right at the beginning of the summer, I think we all would have been agreed that was an amazing start to the offseason. So 100%.
Excellent. A lot of things going on in the chat. A lot of people knock the door. GF is back in the house. Welcome back, Pete. Pete is with us also. Excel knock the door. We have a question before we move on from Peter August for you, Marco. Do you see Kiro as a major target for Montreal? If yes, does he fit the ad structure?
Oh man, so listen, I know he's out there, and so Elliot Friedman had something out today where Montreal is apparently very active on that. It wouldn't be my first choice, coach. Like, I just don't like based on kind of what Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon said that they were looking for, which is players with compete. Jordan Kyrou, there's no question he's like a 3-time 30 goal scorer now the last 3 years. So there's no question that he's very productive during the regular season. So for those asking, I saw a couple people ask this in the chat. Jordan Kyrou is not a center. He's for sure a right shot winger, right? Very fast, really good hands, mostly creates off the rush. It doesn't really kind of get around to the net too much. Not somebody that's going to go win a bunch of board battles, but he, again, he's really fast, right? So he can definitely move around the ice. So listen, not saying he's not a good player. I just, for my opinion, I just wouldn't want to spend a lot of assets that you would need to go acquire that player, because then you're using a lot of the same assets that you might want to use to get a second line setter eventually. I'd much rather them do nothing and just wait for that opportunity to get a left-handed shot, second line center. And then I just don't see how Kyrou, Sean Sosner, listen, Kyrou is a good player, man. Like, I'm not saying he's a very good offensive player, but if you really read the tea leaves here of kind of what Kent Hughes is looking for, does he really add anything new to the mix that Montreal has? Other than Slavkovsky, and Suzuki plays pretty heavy, right? But you're adding Kyrou to a mix of Caulfield and Demidov, and who knows who else, right? But that's not a lot of heavy players in that top six. So I'm not sure. We're just talking about roster construction, right? Montreal is in that phase where it's like a puzzle, right? Like they're looking for a very specific puzzle piece that fits within the mix of players that they have. You're not just if you're just going to say, "Oh, that player is really good. Oh, that player is really good," and just mash them together without and I don't want to make it sound like overly complicated, right? But without thinking about the architecture of kind of what you're building, then I think that's a mistake. So, and I just don't see so if you bring in Kyrou on the right wing, Patrick Laine is now on your third line. Is Patrick Laine really a third line player? Is that really what you brought him in to do? Is he don't you kind of want your third line to have defensive zone responsibilities and stuff like that? So I don't know, coach. Again, I'm not shitting on Jordan Kyrou. I know he's a very good player, but I just don't think it's a fit based on kind of what I think they would need, based on kind of what I've heard Kent Hughes talk about in his post-mortem after the season ended. What do you think?
What I'm thinking about Zarovsky, 6'1", Kyrou 6'1". Both are right winger. 35 overall pick, Jordan Kyrou. Zarovsky is a 34 overall pick. My point behind that is he's a winger. He's considered the position center in NHL. But honestly, he play more as a winger. He has about 20 face-off last year in NHL. He's at 33% the last two seasons as a face-off. So if he's go with any team in NHL, he's going to be a winger.
Yeah, and can I just answer? Sean just bring up something here about Kent Hughes saying, and I remember that. Is it Sean? Yeah, Sean. So Sean Sosner, I'm not sure how you pronounce your last name, but Kent Hughes did say that you don't necessarily need a center on the second line that drives play, and I agree with that. Right, like you don't need your center necessarily to drive play, but you need a center. So that's why and coach, I'm sure we're going to talk about different targets and everything later in the show. But I think for Montreal, I would be perfectly fine for them to get a second line center that's only going to get maybe 55 points, 60 points or something like that, but can win faceoffs, can actually take faceoffs in the defensive zone if needed and be reliable, can play a 200-foot game, and then also somebody to go dig out pucks, that's going to kind of go back, and support the D in the defensive zone, do all the small things so that the more talented wingers on that line can thrive. To me, a player that I mentioned a couple of times is Braden Hayton from Utah, right? A player like that. So listen, Sean, I get it, right? You can have a successful line that's not driven by a center, but you still need an actual center. I don't think Kent Hughes said, yeah, we can just have a winger play center. I don't think that's what he said at all. But I know what you're saying. The reference you're making is that he said that you can have a line that's not driven by a center. So just a bit different.
You're absolutely about that. I agree with you for your comments about this. Let people in the chat. We appreciate that. Don't forget, guys, to click on the likes. Also, don't forget also we'll be back tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. talking about the preview, the UFA. I'll go to a little bit, talk about this a little bit here, but not much. Here we go. Marco going to go a quick news of the NHL. The first one, we have a lot of things happening. Let's see about the new deal we got today. We have mentioned a 6 year at 7.7. Dante Fabro, 4 years at $4 million. This kid gets almost kicked out of the Nashville Predator for absolutely nothing. He got a 4-year deal. That's pretty amazing. Look like an Ducks is get all the goalie for the Detroit Red Wings. Just missing now Alex Lyons. But they got now Ville Husso, a 2-year deal at $2.2 million after he got a contract of 3 years with the Detroit Red Wings at $4 million from the St. Louis Blues a couple of years ago. Claude Giroux stay with Ottawa at $2 million for 1 year. Kuznetsov, Draft by the Minnesota Wild a couple of years ago, got a 2-year deal with the Boston Bruins at 925. Liam from the 1-year deal, 775. And then we have Julien Gauthier, a 2-way contract, also like Liam, a 1-year deal, both of them with the New York Islanders. Something pay you attention on that one of those contracts before we move what happened in contracts on the weekend?
Lot of business done today. I guess GM's kind of not taking it easy. Such a quick turnaround after the draft, right? Like it's just crazy how everything goes in fast forward at this time of year. No rest for the wicked for these executives. But to me, what stands out is the Matthew Nyes deal. Just a great bit of business by Tree Living here. I think it's a great number. The term is actually pretty decent too. Like they do end up getting, I believe, at least 2 years of free agency from Matthew Nyes here. So the cap hit to me after the Tavares deal, that was very, very team friendly as well. These are two really, really good signings for Toronto that puts them in a position to to continue to kind of like work on the roster with the pending departure of Mitch Marner in a couple days here, most likely. This is a really nice piece of business. Really, like Matthew Nyes had a breakout season last year, probably their best player in the playoffs before he got injured as well. Really nice deal for Dante Fabro too. I guess Columbus, probably weren't in a big hurry doing that. They were reportedly obviously right there for Dobson as well. So maybe this is a response to them striking out on Dobson. But Dante Fabro had a really strong season with Columbus after he, like you said, was jettisoned out of Nashville for nothing, unceremoniously, just kind of like you said, kicked out of that organization. But he had a very strong kind of second half for Columbus and was a big part of them basically just falling 1 point short of making the playoffs. And Claude Giroux, all I can say there, he blinked. He was the first one to blink. He didn't want to leave Ottawa. As the player, you kind of start off, it's negotiations, right? So you always kind of try to take a position, but he blinked first. Ottawa got a pretty good player here at a very reasonable number. There's some bonuses attached to this $2 million number as well. But I'm sure he's very relieved, not wanting to. Well, we all know that he's from Hearst, Ontario, not too far from Ottawa. So I think he's probably very happy to stay one more year. He wants to. For him, there's probably unfinished business there. They made the playoffs last year for the first time, and yeah, like good depth signings for the Islanders here. So more of this to come, Coach. But some good tidy business from a couple of GMs around the NHL today.
It was really busy day for everybody. Set up the June 30. And what happened this week during the weekend, guys? I forgot Jonathan Taze, but yeah, Kevin bought at $5 million, 6 years. This has really surprised me. A lot of money for a guy like Kevin Barr. I know he's good, but second pairing, it's a lot. Anyway, Joel offered a goaltender 3.4 for 2-year deal. We have a Fleury, Zordzeff, Sachenko, not bad. Noah Thompson, 8 year, 9.5. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. But Sam Bennett at $8 million, 8 year. John Tavares at 4.3, 4 years. Trent Frederic, 8 years at 3.8. Jack Quinn, 3.3, 2 years. And Brennan Saad with the Vegas 1 year at $2 million. Same question. 1 or 2 players, really quickly, what you think about those transaction signature extension contract?
Yeah, well, we haven't had a chance to talk about Jonathan Taves, like really good gamble for Winnipeg. Like, he hasn't played in almost 3 years, but the last time that he was there, he was on the pace, I believe, for close to, like 20 something goals, maybe about 50 something points. So, like if he can if he can kind of catch his stride and find his rhythm again, that would be a really nice add for Winnipeg there. Looking down the list here, like, Sam Bennett, I think that's a good number for him. And not a surprise that he would end up there. I don't love the Trent Frederic deal, Coach. Like, I know that cap hit is it's an 8-year deal, right? So that cap hit's going to, as the cap goes up, it's not going to look as bad. But I get it. Like, Edmonton is trying to secure some players at a lower AAV. They definitely need the space. I'm just not a huge Trent Frederick fan. Like, we didn't really have a great sample of him in the playoffs because he wasn't really that healthy. But to me, like I said, John Tavares is a great deal. We talked about Dobson, so that's it to me. Brendan Saad, it looks like it clicked when he went to Vegas. So good for him. Like, big, heavy guy. Vegas needs to get a bit faster though, coach. Like, don't you find Vegas is a bit slow up front? They need to add some speed. But good depth guy, good third line player. If you have him playing with the right people, but not as fleet as foot as he used to be. So it'll be interesting to see. It's only 1 year though, so it should be fine.
We have 3 trade happenings on the weekend where I paid maybe a bit more attention. Where the Montreal Canadiens draft Thompson for Thompson. We have the Anaheim Detroit for the Gibson goaltender. Finally did it. And the Los Angeles Kings trade Spence. Really quickly, talk about those 3 transactions overall. And we'll go from there after that with more news.
Yeah. Well, to me, the big one here is obviously the long rumored John Gibson trade. It seems like, wasn't it even before COVID that, there was rumors that John Gibson was going to get traded to Anaheim? Like, it's been forever that we've been hearing him on the grapevine. So it finally happened. I think, Yzerman has, dilly-dallied enough with his goaltending situation. Like you said, like, how many goalies did they have on their roster last year, coach? Like 5 goalies.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems like crazy. Like, teams like Buffalo and Detroit, coach, like, after seeing Montreal lap them last year and make the playoffs well ahead of schedule, there's got to be so much pressure in Buffalo and Detroit to finally break through. So Yzerman finally, after sitting on his hands with respect to his goaltending situation over the last several years, finally makes a move here. The only cautionary thing with John Gibson is that he is not somebody that you can count on for 65 games or something like that. So, I hope that I don't know if is Lyon also a free agent? Like, they need a capable kind of backup to play at least 35 games to make sure that's going to work for them. But that's a huge upgrade for them in net. Detroit still has some holes, especially on the back end, but I think that's a really important move for them. Ottawa, they address a pretty important need on their right side, getting Spence. He's a kind of good puck moving defenseman, decent offensive upside. Never really kind of got the chance to really break out in Los Angeles behind players like Doughty, and now they have the Brent Clark, who they were going to prioritize over him. So I think that's a good bit of business. Again, surprise, only a third. We know the premium for right-handed defensemen. So good for Ottawa. They get, like, at the very least a solid puck moving defenseman that maybe they can finally move on from a player like Travis Hamonic. They've really relied a lot on Travis Hamonic in the last 2 years. So I think it's definitely an upgrade over him. So good move for Ottawa to stabilizing their back end a bit.
Great point about those 3 transactions. Will be interesting to follow up Spence. I think they're helping the Ottawa long term. I think so too. We'll talk about Thompson the next couple of minutes, so we don't go a little bit deeper. I just want to get an overview of the biggest transactions on the weekend. And then we have a news for the Vegas. It's possible Pietrangelo could miss the season. That opened up again for the Vegas Golden Knights. $8 million on the table.
Yeah, this is a pretty big blow, right, for Vegas, and for anybody who kind of hey,
Thanks so much, Samuel Watson. Welcome to the family.
Thanks for subscribing, Samuel. Glad to have you. For those people who were kind of questioning Peter Angelo's decision not to go to Four Nations last year and still, not technically being injured and still playing for Vegas. Here you go. Like obviously he was injured. He wasn't really playing 100% and was saving himself for Vegas in the playoffs. So I guess you could view this in two different ways. Like this is a massive hole in Vegas's lineup. They do have a pretty big deep core, but not necessarily on the right side coach. So there's some discussions that they made a really, really strong pitch to Calgary for Rasmus Anderson. So they're definitely going to need, like, we all know kind of what's going on with the Marner situation. I don't know if you have that in our headlines here, kind of what's going on with Marner and the Toronto not being super happy about possible tampering and that whole thing. But before they did that, they were really, really heavily in on Rasmus Anderson, according to a few sources. So that's going to be a huge hole. But at the same time, if they're able to put him on LITR for the whole season, at least that gives them some clarity of where they can kind of move that money, right? So not good news, but every news has a silver lining. And I'm sure Vegas will pivot. Vegas they're the kings of pivoting very quickly if something is not working the way that they want. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what Vegas does next. They're not a team that stays sitting still for very long, as we know.
Great point about Peninsula Vegas. Will be interesting what will be the next. But you said you start the season with your right defenseman without Peninsula. That's a blow for the Vegas Good Night. Whatever they try to bring someone, it's not good enough. And we, with the new CPA, they cannot do too much about this. Anyway, we see what's happening. Look like Corporate could be the end with the Edmonton Oilers. They still negotiate contract, but it's not looking good for what we heard. And also no talk for McDavid about the negotiation contract. So what do you feel about Edmonton Oilers? You talk about a team try to fill the spot, right? And Montreal have two plays. They have the right defenseman and the center, but the Edmonton have the goaltending situation, the right defenseman situation, the contract of Evan Bouchard. Also, they have to be talk about this, and they still have Skinner Addison. So they send a Kane for nothing to get more money. But this is a team knocked the door twice at the Stanley Cup. We have to recognize that. They lose both, but still, that's pretty good. Not many teams can go the final back-to-back year, whatever you're losing. But they're still missing piece of the puzzle. They try to figure out what it takes to win one more time. And we'll see.
Yeah, like it's complicated, right? Like after a very, in my opinion, like a disastrous offseason last year from Bowman, with going out signing Arvidsson and Skinner, basically locking, kind of handcuffing himself and putting himself in a very vulnerable position to get the offer sheets for Hollowell and for Broberg. He's hey Kenneth, thanks for the subscription, buddy. Welcome aboard.
Thanks so much, Kenneth.
Yeah. So, that was a not great, kind of like asset management last year or decision making that really kind of put them in a bad position. So, again, like when you're all the way stuck at the top of the cap like that, then sometimes you have to make desperate moves, like moving on from Evander Kane for nothing. That was Vancouver, I think, did them a very big favor. They kind of let them off the hook, to be honest, on that one. But in terms of Corey Perry, like the ageless legend, I won't be surprised if he goes and finds another opportunity. Like he's a good luck charm. But, you almost have like a 90% chance to make the Stanley Cup final if you have Corey Perry in your lineup. He's like the new Pat Maroon, like remember when you had Pat Maroon on your lineup, like it's almost guaranteed that you made the final. Now that's Corey Perry's job. And he had last year probably had his best season in the last maybe 3-4 seasons. Very productive. They played him up the lineup a lot with McDavid and with Draisaitl, which is going to inflate some numbers, right? But still knows what to do around the net, coach. I would not be angry if he would make a reappearance in Montreal. Great relationship with some of the players that were there, like Suzuki and Caulfield. He would look amazing on the fourth line. A replacement for Armia, like if he can come in for like $1 million or something like that, he'll find a new home for sure. In terms of McDavid, obviously his comments in the Edmonton Oilers lockout cleanout spilled a lot of ink, right? Like he definitely, I don't know if he did it on purpose, but he definitely left the door open for a whole bunch of speculation with some. He made a comment something around like, but I have to do what's best for my family, and then he made a comment about, like I could see myself signing here as long as we can continue to be competitive every year. That's a high expectation, right? Like that's it's, if you expect to go to the final every year, that's a pretty lofty expectation. But if I'm McDavid, to me, like Edmonton took it, like, yes, they made it to the final, but in my view, they took a step back. They didn't have as competitive of a final. I think their team was definitely worse than the team from the year before because of some of the mistakes I said that I talked about with Stan Bowman during the offseason, losing Broberg and Hollowell, and just not the right signings. So if I'm McDavid, I don't blame him, man. Like I would just kind of piece out a little bit here and see kind of what Stan Bowman does. Just because Draisaitl signed 8 years doesn't mean that McDavid is automatically going to resign. For me, it wouldn't be insane for McDavid. If I was McDavid in that situation, why not just sign a 2-3 year deal, and just kind of see where it goes. He might be like, I think in the NBA, we saw LeBron James kind of do that even when he was at the peak of his powers. He was still just doing 1 or 2 year contracts, right? With the salary cap predictably going up, it's something that we might see more often, coach, like these really, really big stars. We might not see them be so enthusiastic to signing super long deals, right? So we'll have to see how it plays out. I think from what I've read and what I've heard, he wants to stay. He's looking for a reason to stay, but Stan Bowman really needs to step it up and have a way, way better offseason than he did last year.
Awesome. Great comment about the McDavid and Perry. A lot of comments in the chat. Keep up your conversation. We'll go to answer some of you. Roger, welcome back in the house. We have new people pop up also. Welcome all of you. We appreciate a lot. Seattle buy out Veleno and Tampa buy out Sherry. We'll go to hear more. Maybe a couple of players going to be buy out before tomorrow night, 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Not big surprise there. We questionable one is they get another center Seattle, so now there are 6 center, too many center there. I don't see Montreal are running after Joe Villano with one of the 2 players for the Montreal Canadiens, so don't expect that for other people asking this question. So let's move on for the next thing, if you don't mind. The CBA is on the hold, and one thing you have to pay attention to the CBA, we talked about this Friday, but it could be complicated, the Montreal Canadiens and many other teams. If you remember, Marco, 24 hours before the season start, team was sent in Laval, example, Jekai, Strobel, and any other players to go to put the salary cap under to the limit and then call them the next day and then they can play. It looked like they cannot do it. If you send the players in Laval, but you have to report in Laval and then come back after the beginning of the season. So this is where right now they. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no more paper transactions. They call those paper transactions.
Yeah.
So it's I guess they're really trying to clamp down on people moneyballing. The cap numbers, like a guy like who's the capologist for Montreal again there? What's his name? The guy with like 8 chins. The GM for Laval. What's his name again? The assistant GM for Montreal. Coach?
Yeah.
What's his name again?
Segwich.
Yeah. So capologists like that, like that's where they make their money, right? Like they they're looking for every penny that they can save. So that's for sure going to change how teams operate. But there's a lot of it. Coach, we should do a full episode on on kind of some of the changes in the CBA. Like there's definitely some interesting things that will change the game a little bit, especially the LITR, like during the playoffs and all kinds of interesting stuff.
Awesome. I'm going to move on with two news because some people in the chat want to talk about this, so we got that. So don't worry about this. First of all, Mitch Marner rumor going direction Vegas. That's we heard this in a couple of days. Parents visit Vegas, everything like that. And then we talk about to buy the silent, they will trade maybe Nicolas Roy, everything like that. Now we heard the last 10 hours, there's some rumor where Toronto could make a request to the NHL for tampering.
Yeah.
So what you feel about that? What would be the cost? How is the big picture of that situation? Peter, talk about this, I believe, in the chat, so we can explain a bit more.
Yeah, it's a very interesting story, right? Like, every year the NHL does send a warning to teams about tampering. Before, like, I really liked it. Was it like 3 years ago, Coach, where they'd made it so that you had like a talking window where you could talk to free agents for like a week leading up to free agency. Like, I don't know why they stopped doing that. Like, why not just kind of make it legal, make it structured so there's certain rules around it, and why kind of like let these things happen in the dark and everything else, right? So I wish that they would just kind of bring back that rule that they had for a little while. But yeah, it's been interesting, right? Like, so it makes perfect sense. If Mitch Marner knows that he is seriously considering talking to Vegas, that it would make sense, because as we know, the only way Mitch Marner can get a full 8-year deal is by signing with Toronto before he becomes a UFA. Hey, David.
Thank you. New
Thanks for
member,
joining.
David. Thanks so much, my friend David, to do that. We appreciate a lot. We're going to come in with something perks for the people are the member. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about this the next couple of days, but I appreciate a lot, again, David, to become a member of the Hockey Nation show. Yeah, so it'll be very interesting. It could be some people are talking about Roy, Carlson, and Nicolas Ag. I don't say all three there, but Vegas had
makes
to put
sense,
out
right?
something to open up more money, but they don't necessarily need it now with Pietro Angelo.
Yeah. Like, to me, this would be really bad news, because Vegas was one of the teams that I was hoping Montreal would be able to be a good partner with if they were looking to make room for Marner. I was hoping that, like, I know Carlson, they're not super interested in moving him, and he does have like no trade clause and everything else. But if Montreal, those would be two very attractive targets for Montreal, whether it be Carlson or Hurdle. Those were two players that I was really hoping to see Ken Hughes look into. But if Toronto is going to facilitate this by trading for a guy like Nick Roy, then that's going to, on top of Peter Angelo, then you're right, like they're going to find enough money to do that. But that will still leave a pretty big hole on their defense, Coach. Like, even if you're able to bring in Marner, like I said, I think they are going to have to do something on the right side of their defense. So we'll have to see. But to me, the way that I see this, Coach, is it's smart from Toronto's perspective, right? Like, if you go public and say, hey, we think if Vegas signs Marner, we might actually put in a claim for tampering, then that might encourage Vegas even more to at least get a trade for Marner and get something back. Because don't forget, Coach, like, in 2 days here, Toronto is just going to see Mitch Marner walk away for nothing. So, and if you watch any kind of podcast around the Leafs, like Steve Dangle or any of those shows, imagine here, Montreal, Coach, like if you had Nick Suzuki in 7 years from now or whatever, or if you had one of our core players walk away for nothing, like not even trading him at the deadline or anything like that. It's organizational malpractice what the Toronto Maple Leafs did with Mitch Marner. So I can understand that they are desperate to kind of at least get something out of him, trading his rights or doing a sign and trade. So this might just be another way, Coach, by threatening to make a complaint to the league, they might be signaling to Vegas, hey, like if you really want this player, then just let's do this trade. So maybe we'll see kind of what happens. But I don't know what the penalties are for tampering, but I'd have to look it up. But I heard that it's pretty serious. Like I think it's either money. I'm not sure if you have to relinquish picks or anything like that. Coach, do you know what the penalties are for tampering?
Usually, it's a first round pick. Remember what happening with Arizona? Something happened with Arizona a couple of
That
years
was
ago.
different. No, that was they did an illegal combine, right? Or an
Yeah,
illegal kind
but
of
my point behind that
yeah.
is they punish team like that and they guide a fine, a fee come with
Yeah.
that part over there. So they cannot set to a team. You have to send a players to them or something. Does that make sense? Like they cannot make that
Yeah.
decision. So I think they can hit on the fees and on the fine and of course a round pick. That's what my I feel like the only thing they can do at the end of the day, I believe. But we'll be interested what happening for sure. Last news, guys, the Dallas Star hired for the second time Glenn Golenzan, head coach of
Weird.
the Dallas Star. This is the second time they get hired there. Didn't have a great first time because something happening during that time. But anyway, um, I'm a little bit surprised he's still another live in the NHL after a couple of years with I think is the Calgary Flames if I recall it. It may be another team. I don't know his Vancouver Canucks. He's been in the NHL for many years as assistant coach. Really smart coach, by the way. He knows hockey
Yeah,
very
it's not
well. There's nothing wrong. He's
sure.
just behind the bench on the NHL did not get that kind of performance we expect. That's the only thing I can tell you.
Yeah, it's weird. It's not often like unless you're Michel Terrien in Montreal, it's not often that you see a coach come back for a second time, especially when it didn't go super well. But yeah, like I was a little puzzled by it, to be honest. Like but sometimes these moves pay off well. Like I remember coach when Paul Maurice got hired for Florida, leaving Winnipeg. I didn't think that was the greatest move, but man, like has ever turned out to be amazing, right? So we'll have to see how it works out. You're right. He's a good hockey man, right? But to me, I view him more as like an assistant coach, I guess. But we'll wish him the best, and he certainly has a really strong team in Dallas, so should be good.
Yeah, absolutely about that. So let's move on. What we got tonight, other subject we got to talk about. We're getting there, guys. The NHL draft and the Montreal Canadiens. We're going to get, if you don't mind, with the NHL draft recap. What happened on the weekend for all the last two things. First of all, this is the draft. I apologize. Marco will be back really soon. What happened on the weekend, guys, for all the NHL draft from 1 to 32. And then we'll talk about this a couple of times, if you don't mind, Marco. And then I'm going to bring you here. Don't worry about that. Try to figure out, are you here? I don't know why you're not there. Are you behind this? There you go. You are behind the graphic, and that's happening about that one over there. Look, this was really interesting. If you think about this, my first comment about the initial draft recap, it was terrible.
Yeah, yeah, it was really bad. I for the first time, they didn't have the NHL awards, and I was happy about that because the NHL just doesn't know how to make events like this, coach. Like you just have to keep it simple, and it was really cringeworthy at times too, right? Like so many. It took so long, really really slow, really awkward. The probably the most awkward moment, coach. I don't know if you would agree, but was the Boston pick when Hagens actually got picked, and Don Sweeney and Cam Neely didn't even really know they're on camera, like and just left him hanging. That was so awkward, coach. So yeah, terrible. I think we learned that we have Steve Eiserman to thank for. I think he was the one that was really pushing for the decentralized draft. Now there are other. I think there's another 25 GMs that voted for it as well, but I think a lot of them voted for that because they wanted to make their owners happy and they thought it was going to save money. But Steve Yzerman came out after the draft saying that he really liked the format. He really liked being in his own building and everything else. So if they vote for it again, I think Steve Yzerman would be voting to have it this way again. But the one thing I'll say is that just because it was decentralized, you can't let the NHL off the hook completely, right? Like it was still very poorly executed. To me, it's just wild that they didn't do a run through just to make sure that like all the technology was working. Try to have a sense of how long it was going to take to make every pick. Like just really badly organized. I feel bad for the fans that were there because it probably wasn't very entertaining
At
as
some
well.
point, I had nobody in the building. It was only the three guys for the sport, the NHL network. Like at the second day, I had nobody inside. Like the guy Dan Marr was talking alone. It was everyone was gone. When you have the 16,000 people fans, whenever the player leaving because they have to skip, you still have 10,000,
Yeah.
12,000 people around, and you have about 300 people in the middle of that one over there. So for me, I can understand the money behind that. I can understand Eisenman want to stay home, and I can understand that it's more private. They have better opportunity to talk each other, so I can see that. By the end of the day, it's the fans you have to think about, and the fans did not enjoy the project, the
No.
the draft. Now, how they can do better, how they can improve, how they can find a way, of course, but they have to figure out something else for sure. Um, I don't know. It was Gary Bettman alone with all the guests left and right. I just did not like the way that it was.
No.
It was a lack
Way
of
too much.
the fans. It was not full inside of that theater. Also, the first night, and then the I think for me is the connection between the kid going the stage in front of 20,000 people, get his jersey, can meet the people of the team. They just get fired, and not to talk about a Zoom. Every time I trade alert, guys, he was take 5 minutes to 7 minutes to announce the trade, to figure out who is going to be trade, what are the pick, what is coming back, and then he announce it. You have a lack of the time about that situation. And I like
Yeah.
Jeff, he said it was not terrible, but for me, it was. I've been 10, 12, 14 times in NHL draft every year. And it
Yeah.
was the only time you can have all the people in the same building at the same time. It never happens during the year at any moment. And I think this is the kind of the charisma or the connection. I think you feel it
Yeah.
about that.
It's,
I
it's
don't know.
it's the drama. It's the drama too, right, Coach? Like to me, the best televised sport, and this might be controversial here, but to me, the one of the best televised sports to me is baseball. I know that's going to sound weird. Now, I think there's too many games in baseball. It can be kind of boring when the regular season is going on, but the way that the way that they produce and direct a baseball game for TV is there's so much drama, right? Like, so between each pitch, the director behind the scenes, they go to the pitcher, then they go to the dugout, then they go to the batter, then so it's all about building drama in between picks, right? Or between pitches. And to me, that's the drama of the draft is, Montreal Canadiens, you're on the clock. And then the camera goes on the table and then you see them talking, you see them pick up the phone. And so it's all about drama. And, we just didn't have that in this format at all. And you're right, like just not enough fans. There's only 90 prospects that came too, right? Like a lot of the reporters that went from Montreal, they didn't get to meet any of the prospects because Montreal just didn't have their first their draft picks just weren't in the building. So it's a lot of the reporters that went. It was the first time in their career that they left the draft without having to meet at least one prospect that Montreal drafted. It's crazy.
Great point about that. We're going to move on where we have to talk about this. Just give you guys a little bit an idea what it looked like, the draft on that one. 88 from Canada was drafted. This is the biggest number since 2016. 50 from USA, 27 from Sweden, and most since 2020. 21 from Russia, and 9 from Sweden. From Finland, I apologize. And 9 from Czechia is not there. From different league, guys, 40 for USAHL, 38 for OHL, 9 in the first round for OHL, WHL 33, and 9 in the first round. Sweden is 28, Russia is 21, and QM is 19. So MHL example from Russia is an example. Only 30 of the 224 pick was under 6 foot. Pay attention to that again. 30 of the 224 pick was under 6 foot. If I can recall it very well, someone can confirm this. Zero defensemen under 6 foot,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, zero defensemen drafted that were under 6 feet this year.
Next thing, really quickly, guys, 17 bird countries most in the 20 years. First draft with 2 players born in China. Highest ever draft player born in Australia and Croatia. 8 Slovakia born skater, and 4 Italian born draft picks. School, 6 players from the US high school, Minnesota example of Massachusetts. 2 from Ontario high school. 10 directly from the NCAA program, with many more set to add them to college after draft. We know many of them going to look. So just give you the number, guys, what happening during that draft. It's pretty fun to hear that a little bit. But the winner, Marco, I'm going to give you team, and then give us, everybody in the chat, what you think about this. The New York Islanders are the number 1 winner. Guys, Etchinson, Sheffer, Ekland, Prokhorov, Romano, Poltin, Lorla, Hood, and Vesnica. But this is a great first NHL draft for Matthew Dark. Then you have also the Philadelphia. They get tougher, guys. They target size and they target mean and toughness. Martin 6'3", Nesbitt 6'4", Amico 6'5". Vincent was maybe the biggest one at the top winner of the combine for the power or for kind of physicality. And then guard, another 6'3", 6'5", I believe. So what do you think about the Flyers if you look those kind of name of the team? And this is going to be really a difficult team in the next couple of years.
Yeah, like I didn't like Daniel Briere's draft last year. I think he who was the center they drafted that they reached. I'm trying to remember the name of the kid they drafted last year, but Luchenko, right? Luchenko they got last year. I think they kind of reached for him last year. I love Martin for them. Like I think that's a great pick. Really, really good compliment to what they have. I'm not the biggest Nesbitt fan, coach. Like I think to me that whole transaction with Pittsburgh and Philly here, I think they both lost. They both lost on that one. Like Pittsburgh, I'm not sure what they were doing trading down. Like in this draft, like I understand that Kyle Dubas always likes to trade down. Pittsburgh definitely needs to kind of get more assets. So I understand the idea, but in a draft like this, I don't think you can afford to drop down when the tier of players is what it is later in the first round. So to me, Nesbitt was a bit of a reach there. Like love his size and I love his grit, but I don't see the high end. I don't see the ceiling there being more than a third line center, to be honest. So it's not a terrible pick, but I think that they could have done a little bit better there. But I love Amico and I love Van Seggy too. So definitely a really strong draft for the Flyers, but a bit of a reach for Nesbitt, in my opinion.
Here we go. A lot of people in the chat. Great point. Brodette, the Sharks, Misa, Ravensbergen, Wonk, the China, 6'6", and McKinley. This is the kind of players, I did not pay too much attention. You mentioned this last week. I go there and I look about him. He was around the 40, 50, and he got out, I think, 53 world pick. This is a great additional player when you have Will Smith, Celebrine, Eklam, Shamagulen, and Shagamadalin, and then you have also Askarov. That team is getting better and better. We have to give credit for Mike Green. Mike Green, is it Greg?
Yeah. Mike Greer.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there was a little bit of debate before, some people were maybe thinking that San Jose might be kind of looking to move that second pick because Michael, like they already have such a great bank of like centers, after Celebrini and with like I guess they're looking at Smith as more of a winger, right? But Mike, coach, like you were all over Mike Misa last summer, like you were really dreaming about the possibility of him being a Montreal Canadian. So sorry that didn't. Hopefully you enjoyed the playoff games more than you liked the opportunity of Montreal drafting Misa. But great for them. To me he was the top forward in this draft for sure. I was a little surprised of the Ravensburg and after making the move for Askarov. I was a little surprised that they would kind of go for him and use the draft capital for that. But again, yeah, Sharks are going to be a team to be reckoned with here. I really like what Mike Greer is doing. So now it's they're going to be coming out of this asset collection phase. They probably have another year or two of I think of this coach, and then they're going to be in the same position that Montreal is in now. Arguably, with they got to pick a little higher up more often than Montreal. Montreal got to pick like fifth a couple times. So San Jose is going to be in a very strong position. Now it's just a matter of putting all the puzzle pieces together.
Next team, the Chicago Blackhawks, Fondel, Nestrazil, West, Ebame, again, 6'1", 6'5", 6'6", 6'3". The Chicago go that direction, big bodies and good players also. I think the Hawks did very well with a couple of years with Kolchinski, Leshunov, and then Bedard. And, this team is getting better and better with time. It would take a couple of more years, but they're going to the right direction.
Yeah. Love Frondel. Like I've been high on him all year. A lot of people, had him dropped, earlier in the season. They saw him maybe even getting out of the top 10. But I was pretty confident that he was going to be a top 5 player most of the year. So I really like this move for them. Like I think I think the trend, is that a lot more people are thinking that Connor Bedard might be a winger more so, and I think that'd be a better fit for him. So it's going to be a lot of fun to maybe see these two guys play together. Frondel, I'm not sure I agree with the Barkov comparison that I heard a couple of people talk about. Like I don't think he's Barkov level when it comes to his two-way play, but he does play a pretty heavy game. I think he does project well to be a center. So I think that's going to be a really good mix for Chicago. And West, another big body. Nestersil's solid pickup as well. So for sure, I would definitely have the Hawks on that list of guys teams that did super well.
Great point about that. A lot of great conversation. I cannot pick up I cannot follow up everything in the chat. I apologize, but I have to pick up with Marco. I have to check the chat. It's really great. The Nashville guys, trust make a lot of bad trades over the last 12 months, but we have to give them guys. Martin a bit of surprise, but he pick up someone he want to compete. Reed, maybe one of the top best offensive player after Schaefer as the defenseman. I think nobody talked too much about Lee. Marco. I think he was underrated inside of that prospect draft this year. Run back is another great one. They get a goaltender, guys, Ivan Kovic. I believe for me, Ivan Kovic, after Ravensburgen, he was the best goaltender. I know Columbus won with Andrea Pokov, I believe that's the name anyway. But I think the Reds did a very good job overall, Marco.
They needed it. They need some positive news. I think to me, out of all these, obviously, I think Brady Martin. And by the way, that was probably after Schaefer. The very emotional story that we had there. I think that was probably the most interesting thing in the first round, that Brady Martin wasn't there, and that we got to see that he was doing chores at the farm, and we got to see kind of what he does at the farm and all that. That was pretty interesting. Looks like a character kid. For sure, tough as nails, right? Like, but to me, you're right. Like, good. I do like Riker Lee as well too. To me, the one that I find fascinating is Ivankovic, like you said, because What better kind of model for him to work with than UC Saros? Very similar. I guess you can call them undersized, like six. They're both 6 feet. So yeah, interesting kind of move for Nashville to bring in kind of like potentially a UC Saros clone. Yeah, Ivankovic is known for being really, really fast on his feet, similar to Saros. So interesting, right? Like after trading Askarov, I think they needed to add a little bit more depth in their goaltending pipeline. So good for Nashville.
Great point about that. Finally, guys, we're going to talk about the other team. They did very well, by the way. Calgary Flames, another team, did pretty good. I think a lot of people concerned, and I have to give, guys, I know you're going to not like what I'm going to tell you guys, but I think Pittsburgh, because I thought Pittsburgh did very bad. But if you look about the players they select, it's not bad at all. It's not like the people thinking. They get all craft. They get Kendall. The first two, it's just the way they did it, Marco. It was not the properly about that. But at the end of the day, it's not too bad. It's just the way they did it. The loser, guys, here we go. The Panthers, Avalanche, Golden Knights, Star, Wild, Oilers, Leaf, and the Lightning. If they are all great top 15 team in the NHL. Why? Because they tried to make the playoff and they trade line the pick number first round, second round, third round. Something like Avalanche, Panthers, Golden Knights, Star took so much and Oilers before they pick players. Yeah. So it's not because they pick badly. It's just they don't have enough asset to consider them on the one of the good team. But again, some of them they draft some player was not expect that, so that's the reason they are mentioned about this. But I don't know if you want to think about other team, but I think they have overview everything there.
The only other team that I might put as a sleeper winner, I think, coach, would be Washington. Washington didn't pick a lot, but they had some really good players fall to them as well. So yeah, I think Washington did really well. And like coach, I've watched a whole bunch of different draft recaps from different different podcasts that not Montreal Canadiens based fans or anything like that. And a lot of people really had Montreal in the top tier of teams that did well for their draft based on kind of where they drafted, based on and that's even without considering that they traded the 2 first picks for Noah Dobson. I think the consensus around the NHL is that Montreal did hit pretty well with some of their picks as well too. So to me, 2 sleeper teams would be Washington and Montreal, even though Montreal traded out of the first round.
Great point about that. Other people talk about John Lakovic at 27 is unbelievable. Great pick by the Capitals. Great point about that. I'm optimistic about the kid. They draft. I just think they will look like idiot doing it. Yes, I agree with you about that one over there.
About Montreal, why would they look like idiots? I don't get
Frankie talk about Pittsburgh, the way they did it. They moved. They got 2 picks, and then they go down, and then they come back up. That's the way they talk about.
Carolina and Pittsburgh, they have a Carolina and Kyle Dubas have a reputation for doing that. I still don't like what Pittsburgh did. I think they could have just gotten better value if they just made both picks at 11 and 12. That's what I would have done if I was in their position.
Yeah. We're going to move on for the next thing, guys. We're going to talk about the subject. The next thing is about the Montreal Canadiens. I know a lot of people want to know about the Montreal Canadiens, and we're going to get to hear about that. And add news, draft, a rumor, a lot of conversation in the chat. Everybody wants to trade Mike Matheson, so I'm going to debate on that one, Marco, because I disagree with all the people in the chat right now.
Wow.
They want to trade Mike Matheson. I'm going to give you the reason behind that. He's not at $6 million. Mike Matheson is at 1 more year at $4.7 million. And so people talk about to trade him, and he feel it's not necessary, but I'm going to give you the reason behind that the next couple of minutes. So stay tuned. Don't go nowhere. We're going to say that. First of all, give us, I know we talk a little bit, but a little bit what Dobson trade make the Montreal. What is the purpose behind that, and what he fixed the Montreal Canadiens?
Well, I think we talked about it, coach. Like, again, like it's like it's an opportunity for Montreal to really stabilize their top pair, for the next 8 years. Like it's just one of those things that you don't always have an opportunity to do. And the stars just aligned in a lucky way for Kent Hughes, because things changed, right? Like even if you go back a week ago, the rumor was and the reporting was that Darsh was actually looking for roster players if he was going to move Noah Dobson. So things changed. I don't know why the things changed and why they decided to pivot their approach and look for draft picks. But we're very lucky, like Montreal fans, you're very lucky that Matthew Darsh changed his mind, because, coach, I'll be honest, and we talked about this on draft night when I popped on, but I was very nervous that Montreal wasn't going to be able to move out these picks, right? Because there's so much competition to do that, right? There is a lot of teams looking to move up. There's a lot of teams looking to use their first round picks this year to get better right away. So to me, coach, like it gives me one thing that I'm still concerned about, right? Is that the one thing that's dangerous when you do the model that Montreal did, which is collect a whole bunch of assets and then sell those assets to go get the pieces that you're missing, is you're 100% going to be dependent on the marketplace. So right now, that's the one thing with Montreal, right? Like think of it as milk. Like prospects are like milk; they're not like wine. Prospects are going to go bad. There's an expiry date on them, right? Because you can only have 50 contracts that you can sign. And then after a while, these younger players, I'm thinking like players like Machar, like Harris, like players that were drafted, in the last couple of years. There's going to be churn. There's going to be some of these players that don't NHL, and so to me, that's always the risky part here, is that you run the risk of being very dependent on other teams needing what you have. And if for whatever reason, if there's a lot of other teams competing with you, you put yourself in a position where you could lose these assets for nothing. So to me, this is, in a way, it was like Ken Hughes. Again, like I remember, coach, I used that Oprah Winfrey quote last time we talked, which is, I don't believe in anything. I don't believe in luck. Luck is a combination of being prepared and then having an opportunity that comes and being prepared for that opportunity. So Kent Hughes that's what he did. He was ready. He put himself in a position to take the opportunity that came ahead of him. So to me, that's why Montreal did this, is they saw the value in kind of getting a top four right-handed defenseman. The price, they traded from their surplus to get what they needed. So it was the stars just aligned perfectly for this kind of deal.
Exactly about that. Let's move on for the next thing. Here we go. People want to talk about this. Here we go. The subject: Mike Matheson is going to be traded or not, Marco?
Coach, like I think we're going to disagree on this, and I'm going to probably have to side with most people in the chat here. Like, yes, Mike Matheson, there has a very good value contract this year, right? But I just don't see a fit here, even for this year. I would much rather use him as an asset, among other things, to go get that second line center that we might need, or whatever else asset that you could get for him. And I think have a little bit more space so that Gooley and Hudson can play top 4 minutes. To me, look, what I would probably do, is I would wait to see if Reinbacher makes the team. So I'm not sure I would trade him this summer, Matheson. But if Reinbacher makes the team and he can anchor one of your bottom pairs on the right side, then to me that for sure means that Matheson no longer has a chair. You have to think of it from Matheson's point of view too, coach. This is his contract year, right? So do you think that he's going to be interested in being, because even last year, you saw his point production go way, way down, right? Because he's not getting power play minutes. That's going to be even less this year. He's maybe won't even get second power play minutes because Dobson might be there. It depends how they decide to use everybody, right? But to me, if I'm Matheson, I want to probably, like, I know I love it in Montreal, and I optimally would have liked to stay in Montreal. But if you want to position yourself to kind of get your next deal, I don't think it's a good situation for Mike Matheson to make himself, to put himself in the best position for a contract year coach. Like, he's, like, if you're Mike Matheson, like, this is the conversation that you have to have with him if you're Kent Hughes. Listen, Mike, like, I know, you had 60.2 years ago, and like, last year you saw your kind of role change with the team. We're going to need you to change even more. And listen, like, if Mike Matheson, because his speed is his biggest weapon, right? You could, if Mike Matheson wanted to, he could be like a Gustav Forsling kind of player, right? Like, use his speed to defend, do smart plays and everything else. But Mike Matheson is somebody who wants to create offense. So I just don't think that it's a good fit, because the role that you're going to need him to play, he did pretty well. Like, he was probably there with Savard. He was on their top unit for the PK last year, and for the most part, he did really well. But is he going to be happy doing that? Not just on the PK, but getting all the defensive matchups, playing on the bottom pair with maybe with Carrier, or like who knows how it's going to play out, right? So to me, you take the advantage, you get assets back for him. I know his contract is very good. He's good in the room. But I think it's definitely time to move on for him and for the team. I just don't think it's a good fit. I really, really don't.
What was the biggest problem last year on the right defenseman? Who was missing? Kovacevic.
Yep.
They trade Kovacevic in July for the first 4-round pick because it was expect Rebecca, Mayu, or anybody else, it would fit the spot of Kovacevic. Montreal Canadiens had to trade at the Christmas to get Justin Barron to Alex Carrier. It turned to be good, but they have to do this because they was go nowhere. Now you want to trade Mike Matheson right now, and now who are you going to get on the right defenseman?
Okay.
You don't have Rebecca. You take a risk.
You don't know that. But did you hear what I said, Coach?
Risk. You take a risk.
Did you hear what I said?
You cannot take a risk in NHL. They did it last year, and they paid the price all the way to December. Okay, so if you want to trade Matheson, you have to figure out who is going to be the right defenseman.
Okay, so if you listen to what I said what I would do is I would wait to see if Reinbacher makes the team.
It's only in October, Marco. You cannot trade a player in October. You have no trade in October.
For sure you can, Coach. There's for sure going to be opportunities.
Give me 5 trades in NHL in October the last 5 years, 10 years.
Well, I don't have that information in front of me, but you absolutely there's still moves that can be made, and at the very least, you can trade him at the deadline. So I agree with you. Like,
wait. Now we talk about trade line. It's not the same place where we are right now. At the trade line, this is another conversation.
The other option is this, right? So the first option, I agree with you. I would probably want to see if Reinbacher is going to be able to come in. The other option is you can, like, on the market, you could probably go get an affordable veteran right-handed defenseman as an insurance policy, like a Jan Ruda, a Cody Ceci, like somebody like that, to a 1 or 2 year contract, just as like insurance, and then sure trade Mike Matheson, and use him as a package for something else. So I don't disagree with you. Like, I use the same example. Like, I think Montreal did learn from that lesson with Kovacevic. I think they're going to apply that lesson more with their center ice position. But overall, Coach, it's an opportunity that I think they'll find hard to pass up, right? Like, Matheson's value is going to be pretty high, probably in this marketplace. So I could for sure see them going to get an insurance policy like a Jan Ruda to play, like, 12 minutes a night on the bottom pair, kill penalties and stuff like that. And then if Reinbacher comes in and you don't need a Jan Ruda, then that's fine. You're not paying that much for him. You can have him as a seventh defenseman. You don't mind having a seventh defenseman that's an older guy. And if it's a short-term deal, like a 1 or 2 year deal, it's not hard for teams to be kind of like moving players out like that. So I get what you're saying, but I think it's not a hard solution to figure out a way to make that work so that you can still trade Mike Matheson. And again, coach, you didn't address my biggest point, which is look at it from Mike Matheson's point of view. Mike Matheson doesn't want to play bottom pair minutes with the Montreal Canadiens this year. No power play time. He wants to be in a position to show well and have a good season so that he can position himself being a free agent in the summer. So I'm not sure he thinks it's a good fit. Like, he's a smart guy. Like, he sees that Gouli and Hudson are going to be the top two left-handed defensemen for the Montreal Canadiens.
Hudson's playing the right defenseman. I don't know why, guys, you don't understand that. He played right defenseman 6 months last year. Why you don't put back Hudson on the left defenseman?
Of course they want him on the left side, coach. They don't want him playing right.
Who is minus 19? What is the plus and minus for Lane Hudson last year? Minus 19 on the left side, plus 21 on the right side. Who have a better entrance? Who has a better entrance on the entrance zone? Hudson. Look at an analytic. His number
I don't buy that.
Double more on the entrance zone. That's what happening.
I don't buy that. I don't think there's many other factors that you could point to why his plus minus improved. It's not just the fact that he was playing on the right side, coach. I would be shocked. Like, you're telling me that you really think that the long-term plan for Kent Hughes... I said
Lenarson played better on the right side and the left side last season.
Yeah, so that was my question, though. So you really believe that their plan for Hudson is to play on the right side long-term?
Not necessary to play a long-term on the right side, but I'm talking about right now. You guys, you put Ray Baker in the team right now. Everybody in the chat right now, we can trade Mike Matheson because we can put Ray Baker. What's good? We can put Logan Mailloux. Did you watch, guys, the playoff of the Rocket this year?
Yeah,
how many games Ray Baker did not play during the playoff and during the season? What was the problem?
Coach, I think, like I said, I can't guarantee it. I have a strong feeling that Reinbacher, I'll say at least he has a strong chance of making the team. Okay. He might not, though. He might not have a very good camp. I think he's the kind of player, like I've said many times here, coaches like players that play predictable game. That's Reinbacher's strength, is playing a basic, predictable game, make simple plays and all that. If I'm his agent, if I'm Habs management, I'm saying, David, for this training camp, we don't need you to kind of stand out, be like big hits or be flashy. We just want you to come out, play a good, solid game, be sound positionally, and then we'll see kind of where you land. So I think it's quite possible that he could make the team. But you're right, he could have a tough camp. It's hard to know. But coach, what you're saying, I've already solved for it by saying, okay, you're right. You need an insurance policy in case Reinbacher doesn't make the team, right? So, but that's not that hard to get in this market. You can go get a Jan Ruder or Cody Ceci for not very much as an insurance policy. That's what I would do. I would much rather have an insurance policy than have Mike Matheson on my bottom pair. He can play a defensive role, but that's not his nature. That's not where
who do you play. Okay, example. Who do you play on the left side on the PK?
Gouli.
Who do you put on the right side?
I would put Carrier.
After that.
Yeah. So, and then again, if Reinbacher makes the team, I would have him killing penalties. And you could maybe you're going to have to try Jackeye and Struble in those positions to get a sense of what they're going to do. Right. So I would go first pair would be Gouli, and then, maybe Carrier. And then, either Jackeye or Struble, depending who's playing on the bottom pair, if Matheson's not there, and then Reinbacher. That would be kind of.
So now you guys tonight, you're telling me David Reinbacher played this year. He started in October, and we can trade Mike Matheson. We have no problem with that situation. That's what you're telling me right now.
No, what I'm telling you is that what I would go do is I would go sign an insurance policy. So if Reinbacher can't do it, then I would have Jan Ruda or Cody Ceci or uh,
Matt Dumba,
Probix.
whatever it is, you sign
Not,
another
well,
extra
not
defenseman
Dumba,
on the right
not
side.
Dumba, a defensive right-handed defenseman, Probix or whatever, like a player like that, right? Like just so that would be my solution. I'm with you. Like it would be nice to get an insurance policy. I have more faith in Reinbacher than maybe some other ones, but it makes sense that they would build in a bit of an insurance policy. There's a lot of ways to solve for what you're saying, Coach. But the upside of trading Matheson versus just keeping him and running him all the way to free agency or waiting for the trade deadline, I would much rather like. Here's a question for you, Coach. If you can use Mike Matheson as part of a package to go get that second line center, are you willing to do that? Even though you're saying that you wouldn't trade Mike Matheson, are you willing to do that?
I trade Madison only at the trade deadline.
Okay, but so on July 2nd, Kent Hughes has something on the table with Mike Matheson, some like another prospect or whatever to help get like a second line center. You're not trading Mike Matheson.
No, because I'm not sure if Rebecca is ready.
No, but you can go sign, like I said, go get another depth.
Yeah, we
Depth
cannot go
defenseman.
with a 35 years old. We
Why?
go backwards. We have to go
No,
forwards.
they're
Now,
just.
if you
Well,
do that,
Mike
Marco,
Matheson is not going forward.
Rebecca Mayu does not play with Montreal this season.
Well, how is that? Then what you just said made no sense. You're saying go forward, but then you're not open to having either Mayu or Reinbacher play. Like to me, having a veteran 30-something-year-old bottom pairing right-handed defenseman for a year or two is not going backwards. It's just it's like a replacement for David Savard. But you only play that guy.
Who was
He's
the
really
problem? Savard, can he play in NHL? You cannot go with 35, 37, 38 years old. We go backwards. My point right now is I try to explain to all of you guys. Can someone tell me tonight you can trade Mike Matheson and you have David Rebecca can the spot at the October, or are you happy to play with Cody Ceci?
I just told you, Coach. Cody Ceci, there's Perbix, there's Ruda, and again, like you could
whatever.
Trade, right?
Are you happy to have that defenseman and your core to let Mike Matheson go and to let play Hudson and this? For me, it's go backwards.
Why are you going backwards?
Because you get a defenseman at 35 years old, 39 years old, at the same level with 39. David Savard. And then in November, December, January, you need a spot for Rebecca.
Anything about signing a 39-year-old defenseman? I never said that. Like, you have to remember what the role of this player is going to be, Coach. It's going to be a guy playing like think about the top four here soon, right? You're going to have Gooley, Hudson, and Dobson at the very least playing like 23. Like they're going to be on the ice like 70% of the time almost. So this like bottom pairing defenseman that's going to be like if you do go get a veteran, he's going to have a very specific role. He's only going to be playing 12 minutes a night or 14 minutes a night, depending if you're on the PK a lot, right? So I don't understand why you're so concerned about going backwards by not having Matheson there. You just have to it's just not a fit. It just doesn't make any sense to have him in that role. It's like it's trying to fit a round peg into a square hole, Coach. It just doesn't make sense. Like it makes sense. It made sense having Mike Matheson the last couple of years because he was playing a top four role and everything else. But you need to let Gooley and Hudson take the reins here. Like, the Mike Matheson era is 100% over, Coach. Like it's, you need to kind of move on from that. And again, like guys, I'm not saying that you're depending on Reinbacher, right away. Like Reinbacher probably, if he does make the team, is going to be probably playing on the bottom pair, right? With Jackeye or with Struble or something like that to start. But that's fine. To me, I don't believe in putting training wheels on a player. Like the player has to go out and earn it. So to me, the best strategy is you go get an insurance policy on the right side. If you can move Mike Matheson and get something valuable in return.
What's the value of Mike Matheson, guys? Mike Matheson is the second pairing in NHL. That's it. You cannot get Jordan Kyrou with with Joshua Webb, their first round pick, guys. Come on. If you want to take Jordan Kyrou, the Blues sell you Kaden Cooley. Are you willing to do the deal?
No, definitely.
Here we go.
I
That's
already
the
said I'm
reason
not
behind
interested
that.
in
Mike
Jordan
Mason
Kyrou.
is not going to bring you Maddie Bernier, or he's not going to bring you whoever you want to get there, like a top. They would ask you, Cooley, Caulfield, Sakaski.
Well, not for the kind of player I'm looking at. Like, you don't think that Utah would be interested in a Mike Matheson for a player like Hayden, for example? You know, like depends what you're looking for, right? Like depends what the player is. But if it depends on the piece, right? But yeah, like again, Matheson is not like an elite defenseman in the NHL. I'm not saying that's the case. But I think because of his cap hit, there's still a lot of value there because of the amount of minutes that he can play. He's proven that he can play lots of different positions. So yeah, like I think he can be a valuable member to
No,
the right
I don't
team.
say
That's
Madison has no value. My point behind that, guys, is easy. And my point, if I see this tonight, I don't trade Mike Madison until the trade deadline, Marco. That would be my first. This is my first thing I'm going to do there. I don't want to take a chance with Rebecca until I know exactly in October if he's ready or not. I have Madison to cover my situation over there, and then you trade him at trade deadline. Rebecca is getting ready, or Mayu and on the prospect for the Montreal Canadiens. Now you can have a chance. Now you can trade Madison at this moment. But if you do this right now, you become the same thing happening last year with Kovacevic. You have already
no,
going
because
to get there, and you're going to
not if
have
you're
no
doing
right
it the right way.
defenseman. I'm sorry. And it's not
Not if you're
CC.
doing
I don't want to have a 35 years old CC, everything like that. It's not working.
why
It's because
why
we have Savard for 3 years now. Savard could not go
okay.
nowhere last season. You get another veteran right there. It's not this. You block the chance for a young prospect to be ready NHL. If it's not happen,
What you're saying makes no. You're contradicting yourself, coach. You're contradicting yourself. Like if you're concerned about like Mike Matheson is blocking players right now. If you're that concerned about blocking players, then for sure you have to move
no,
Mike
he give
Matheson.
you a
The type of-
security. That's what he does, Michael
but,
Madison, right now.
but
He give you.
not in the right chair. In the right chair. Like yes,
What shot he
I'm
is? He's a second pairing defenseman. What do you
but
put
that's not what you
Madison?
want.
Because
If you want security, you want a right-handed shot defenseman for security, not another left-handed shot. There's already Jackeye and Struble that are sitting there twirling their thumbs, like waiting for a chance to play. So that he's blocking those guys. So for me, if you can switch Matheson, he's way more valuable. Like again, getting like a Perbix or like a Ruda or a player like that is not going to cost you that much as a free agent or even through trade. And then if Reinbacher does play, if he does make the team, then you have a seventh defenseman. There's no harm, no foul. And then you're opening that up. You're opening up some room for Struble and for Jackeye. Because we haven't talked about this, coach, but if you're Struble and you're Jackeye's agents, you're probably getting a little impatient here, right? Like similar to what I was saying, like, you know, it's great. Like everybody loves the the dressing room and the vibe is good. It's good vibes in Montreal, but it doesn't take long for a couple players to be in a shitty situation. And I'm not saying that they're going to be toxic in the dressing room, but some of these players are going to eventually start thinking what's best for them. How is this impacting my career? And if you're Jackeye, if you're Struble, and even like I said, if you're Mike Matheson, this is not a good position for Mike Matheson. He's not going to get opportunities to play on offense this year. Kent Hughes and Martin Saint-Louis are going to ask him, listen, I know, Mike, you love creating off the rush. But listen, I'm going to need you to have zero risk in your game this year. I'm going to need you to, like, we already have Dobson. We already have Hudson that's going to be out there moving the puck for us. We want you to use your feet, but we need you to play really, really safe hockey this year. Your puck management in your new role is the most important thing. That's not the type of hockey Mike Matheson wants to play. It's not the type of hockey that he's wired to play. So I just don't think it's a good fit. It's a square peg in a round hole. It's just not going to work. But again, so what we agree on, coach, we don't agree on everything here. But we agreed it makes sense for Montreal to have an insurance policy in case Reinbacher doesn't make the lineup. Where we disagree is you think Matheson is the insurance policy, while I think he's not the right insurance policy. They should go get a veteran right-handed defenseman that they're not locked into long term, just a little short-term deal that could play a bottom pair minutes for them. And if Reinbacher makes the team and does well, fantastic. Then you have a seventh defenseman, and if you need to, you can always move out that guy. So we agree partly, but we just don't agree 100% on who the insurance is.
It's just when we trade him. For me, I go to the trade deadline. Mike Matheson, they give you a first round pick in return at the trade deadline.
Maybe. I think because of his cap hit, a lot of teams might be looking at that, but it's debatable whether he has more value now versus the trade deadline. Because I don't think and see, this is another thing, Coach. Like, we didn't talk a lot about in this episode about Habs summer targets, like who are they going to be targeting.
What's the next one?
Are interested. Okay, so listen, like, it's if they don't, like, one thing you have to kind of be prepared for is that if Montreal comes out of the summer without a second line center, there's a strong possibility that they could trade for one during the season too, right? So it's not the end of the world if Matheson doesn't get traded this summer and Montreal doesn't get it now. There's, like, we know a lot of teams want to get better right now. That's the thing about the offseason, like, everybody starts even again in October and everybody thinks they have a chance to win. But you just have a couple teams maybe that have a terrible start to the season and things can change quickly. A management team gets fired. So many things can happen. And then all of a sudden you might have different possibilities that you didn't know were there or weren't available during the summer, right? So listen, all I'm saying is that I would be open to trading Mike Matheson if it's part of something that's going to make Montreal better. You seem to think that they shouldn't do that right now because you're concerned about the hole that it leaves.
Wait a minute. If I get Thomas Hurdle example, right? Or you get a center left shooter.
Zacha. Let's say Pavel Zacha or something like that.
Something like that, right? I can understand. You can take it, and worst case, if I have to, I understand your point of view about that. I can feel the right side because if Reinbacher is not ready, everything like that. So I understand that. I'm smart enough to understand that. My point of view is just this for all of you guys. I just said for me, because Reinbacher is maybe not ready, or Mayu is not ready, keep Matheson until the trade deadline. At the trade deadline, go get a first round pick, everything like that. I don't think Matheson would bring you a second field, a second center in return, at least if you don't trade a big asset with Matheson. Matheson is not good enough. So maybe here's a first round pick, 2026, top 10 protect, plus Mayu, plus Matheson, go with a second center, whatever is the name, and I can understand that. I can do that. But otherwise, I will not trade Matheson, guys, for just he have to go. It doesn't make sense. Like, just because.
That's what I was going to say. I think here's where we can agree, Coach. It's not a rush. Like, we're not desperate. Like, we don't have to trade Mike Matheson. It's not a rush. Like, we're not trying to get rid of Mike Matheson. But I think I'm very much open to doing it if it's part of something that's going to help them get better. But I agree with you. There's not a rush to do it because they can always move them during the season or whatever. So we agree. It's not like I'm going to be upset if Matheson, like, it's not like Montreal is going to be, it's going to be a toxic situation or it's going to be bad. So I think we agree there. So I think we're pretty close. We're closer than we sound, but hopefully we gave people a good debate either way.
Great point, 26 about that. I agree with you about this. About the fact, like, you like to want an NHL forward and return enough with the rebuild to move on. That's the purpose about they'll move on for the rebuild to the rebuild. As they call it, the rebuild team mode. Is it the name they call it today?
I call it the roster construction.
Structural reconstruction, but I think they call this with that part over there. So for me, I would prefer Marco Rebacker play a 20 minutes in Laval, go get what you lost for the last 2 seasons.
But why? What? Like that's what I understand, coach. Like why? Like on June 30th or June 29th,
Yeah,
why are we even having like just let him have his training camp, and see how he does. Like
because you're going to
I
have Rebacker only play 12 minutes per game with the Montreal Canadiens.
that's fine.
Why he missing Marco at 2 years on his hockey career?
That's fine.
Exactly
I
what
don't like
Mayu did after that. What they need is to be on the ice, to feel it, to play minute after minute after minute, 20, 25 minutes. Go get those kind of minutes. I play 10, 12 minutes per game with Jacky on the third pairing. It will not help. Said that,
I
you can
I don't
reevaluate
agree.
him on December. And if it's something you feel good about this, now you feel better and you know he's ready. Yeah,
I just
no
don't.
inflammation on the
I get
right
what you're
knee,
saying.
whatever happening last year, now you feel good. At the July 29, they don't know if his knee is going to inflame again in the October. So for me,
Well,
let's start at Laval
all I'm
and
saying.
see what happening about him.
Well, why? Like, why? So that's what I understand is you may be right. Like, like what you just described could happen. Like, probably the odds are higher that that's what's going to happen. I just don't believe in, and I'm pretty sure the Habs management team goes into the camp, and there's certain players, especially a player that you drafted fifth overall. They're going to give him a good shot to make the team. Like they're not going in there with a prejudged idea of whether he needs to go back to Laval, because you can debate. Like look at their philosophy around Slavkovsky playing in Montreal. They prefer to have him in Montreal working with Saint Louis rather. Like the same argument could have been said for Slavkovsky in his first year too. He should have been playing more minutes in Laval and da da da. So listen, it's too early. I think we just need to see what kind of camp he has. You're 100% right. He might need more seasoning, but let's just let the kid have his summer, his off summer, and see how he does in camp. And I like for me personally, if I had to bet, I'd be more willing to. But I don't bet. I'm more confident that he probably makes the team than not. But that's just my opinion. But I totally understand that that's not the majority of people. And I won't be surprised if he ends up starting the year in Laval and only joins the team later. All I'm
One more,
saying, coach, is that we shouldn't be deciding that now until we see him at camp.
yeah, I agree with you. I think someone said something good on the chat. I tried to pick it up. I think it was Corey or someone or Sean about he trusts Lena, he trusts can use. And one thing you said about this, he was the way he said that, Sean, correct, cannot remember who is. I said, Ken Hughes will take care about Mike Matheson like he take care about Casey D. Smith, Sean Monahan, and all those players, Marco. So if you feel,
Yeah, yeah,
if you feel it's good for Mike Matheson to go, but he will do it because he
yeah,
does not want to the players stink here in
sure,
Montreal. So he's going.
yeah,
This is his first priority of can use Marco behind that. Whatever maybe
for
the
sure.
team is not to get what he maybe could get, but he want to be sure Mike Matheson is treated well by the Montreal Canadian organization
Yeah,
because the words around the league, Marco, is this way. But
sure.
again, I think we
Yeah, and
talk about fun things, but I think we're pretty good on this one.
yeah, yeah. So I just last thing here, Sean brings up the meeting that Matheson had at the combine with the management team. So we are aware of that, Sean. We don't know what they talked about. It could be about feeling Matheson out for what we just talked about. Hey, Alex, how do you feel going into this last year? Like, obviously, and don't forget, Sean, like this conversation with Mike Matheson in Buffalo happened way before they just got Noah Dobson. So whatever they talked about with Matheson then, they didn't know they were getting Noah Dobson. So whatever they talked about then doesn't really apply anymore either. But maybe the conversation was getting a feel for him as to whether he is interested in playing a lesser role and if he's cool with that going into his contract year. They could have been talking about an extension and whether he is committed to playing a more kind of like Gustav Forsling safe brand. Oh, breaking news! Breaking news!
Here we go.
All right.
Marco, you can announce it.
So it looks like thank you, A2. It looks like Connor Geeky has just signed a 6-year extension with the Boston Bruins for $5.5 million AAV.
This is good.
This is
Very
very,
good.
very good for also, well, since this is a Habs podcast, coach, what does this mean for the Montreal Canadiens? Does this mean that now that they have Connor Geeky, does that mean that they're going to be open to moving Pavel Zacha?
I'm not sure about that, but Montreal does
Because
not have what Boston is looking for.
because I know Jimmy Murphy was reporting from the eye test and from RG Media was reporting that they there were discussions about him about Zaka, but that they were kind of waiting to see kind of what happens here with Geeky. I'm not sure what Boston is looking for. I think they need like a little bit of everything. They probably need help on defense, to be honest. So Montreal would be a good partner, but not many trades between the Boston Bruins and Montreal Canadiens. That's for sure.
Guys, point about that. I want to mention an open up because we are almost at the end of the show. People, a lot of people talking about something, and we can talk more. But I think we're going to stop there. I have many other things I could talk about the rumor, Dvorak, Malkin, Kiru, everything like that. But my next thing is about for the Montreal Canadiens. Jeez, I forget the time I was talking about that way. Okay, Dawson Mercer could be available.
Yep. Not a
I think
center.
I think it's a good
Not a
fit.
center.
But if you're the New Jersey Devils, you look at Montreal Canadiens, and I ask you this for the people in the chat. I think for me, I would love to have Dawson Mercer. I think there's a great fit for the second center. But what you can
He's not
give
a center.
because the Devils are looking for a top six for checker return that they want to be bigger. And I don't think so. Mike Matheson will fix the situation, Marco, because they have so many defensemen, Luke Hughes, everything like that. So I don't know. He's a good match shot for the Montreal Canadiens with Dawson Mercer. I don't see that. I don't know if you
No,
agree with me about that or not.
I agree because of these two reasons. First of all, I don't think he's a center. Go look at his face-off percentage. He's well under a 50% guy, and he's a right shot. He's not a left-handed shot. Montreal already has so many right-hand shot centers. So not only is he not really a center, he's more of a winger, in my opinion, but he shoots right. So he's a great player, though. Like, would I like to have Dawson Mercer? I think he has a great motor. Like, I think he's a good player, but how do you make that fit with Patrick Laine and Kirby Doc? Like, to me, Kirby Doc and Patrick Laine and Cole Caulfield are the right shot wingers in your top nine. So if you're adding another right shot winger, you have to move one of those guys, right? So I just don't see it. I would like to talk about Malkin though, coach. Like, did you want to talk a little bit about Malkin as a option? That's not
Malkin?
insane. Yeah,
I don't know if I have this right here. He was Kiru
there you
Malkin.
go.
It was the next one about
Yeah.
this.
So we already talked about Kairu, so I think we can put that one to bed. I'm not a big fan. I don't think you were a big fan of that move either. But let's talk about Evgeny Malkin for a minute. So, you know, coach, there's not many teams in the NHL right now that are actively embracing a rebuild. Most of the teams that you think are doing a rebuild, their management teams are not cool with them completely tearing it down. I'm talking about the New York Islanders, Boston Bruins, teams that you think should be tearing it down to rebuild. It looks like they're trying to do more like a retool on the fly, right? Like Washington did. Washington kind of changed a lot of management teams' perception of how you can do that, right? So Pittsburgh is pretty much the only team I think that's doing that. Pittsburgh has already let it be known to Malkin that they're not signing him to an extension. So either Malkin is going to retire at the end of this year or he's going to become a UFA. And he knows that, right? So it's unclear, what's going to happen with Crosby. Like, basically we know that Crosby is going to choose where he wants to go. But I don't think it would be a terrible. It depends what the cost would be, right? But um, for like if you could get him this summer, like if you get a full year of Malkin, I can't think of a better guy to kind of play with Demidov for a year or two. He's not the player that he used to be. Like he's slowed down quite a bit, but he's still potentially like easily a 60-point player. 25, you can easily get like 20, 25 goals. He had a pretty decent season last year, guys. So um, I Crosby to me is a whole different thing. Like Crosby's going to choose where he wants to go. There's no question in my mind that he's going to want to go win a cup somewhere. But I just get a sense that Malkin probably would also want to play in Montreal. I think it would be a fun place for him to play. I think it would be easy for him, for the management team to sell him on coming to Montreal with Demidov. I don't know. I think it would be fun. I think it would be a fun move for Montreal to do. Very low risk. All again depending on the cost, right? Um, if you're giving, if they're willing to do kind of like a couple of prospects and like a second round pick or something for Malkin, then I think that would be something that I would do. I I'm not sure I would kind of be trading a Logan Mailloux for that. I would rather save him for a bit of a bigger move. But what do you think it would cost, Coach, if so? Assuming Malkin does become available, what do you think it would cost a team like Montreal to go and get him? And then, secondly, is that something that you think would work well in Montreal?
Yeah, because you have free next season, so that usually the value drop a little bit. I think if you look about Dubas, he want prospect, he want asset. Um, I know maybe disagree, maybe Mayu plus a second round pick 2026, 2027.
Yeah, and yeah, I think I think that would make sense for Pittsburgh. Like I think could you do like would you trade Owen Beck and a second for 2 year, like a year or two of Genny Malkin
Yeah, Beck could be another option on that one. I would prefer to
or
keep
Kapanen?
Mayu over Beck because Mayu keep your right defenseman. And Beck, you have similar player. I think at some point Florent Jacquet would be over Beck and Kapanen.
I don't think Jack is going to be a center, Coach. I think he's going to be a winger.
No, but that's possible. Becky would
Yeah,
be also a winger too, but I
yeah,
don't think he would be a pen. I think for me, if a choice, Beck is better center at Kapanen, and Kapanen is better
yeah,
winger at Beck. If you want to have my
yeah,
preference about that
yeah.
one.
I'm with you. I agree with you. So yeah, like if you could do Kapanen, um, Roy, and like a second or something, like some type of package, or like like a you know yeah, I think there's a package that you could put together that would make sense. But like I don't know, I think that would be a pretty sexy move for Montreal, for sure. My again, like my top targets right now, that are realistic. Like if you take away Crosby and you know uh, players that like McTavish or players like that, like realistic ones. I've talked about Hayden a bunch of times. Again, you're looking at Vegas, you're looking at Hurdle, and you're looking at Carlson. Those are some interesting options. I would love for Montreal to target a player like Dvorsky in St. Louis, but that would be super super expensive. And St. Louis is also looking for depth at center as well. Here's one player, Coach, that might be available here in the next couple weeks. It's going to sound weird, but the Toronto Maple Leafs are probably going to move on from, and this wouldn't be for our second line center. This would be more to replace Dvorak. What do you think? Because I'm pretty sure that Toronto is going to be getting rid of David Kemp. David Kemp is probably going to be on the move to make some room for the Maple Leafs. I know again the Leafs and the Montreal don't trade very often, but do you think David Kemp would be a good solution for fourth line center? He's got 2 years left. Oh, I think he's over 50% on the faceoff dot, kills penalties.
The
What are your
problem
thoughts on David
you
Kemp?
become now another bottom six, and you have already many bottom six in Montreal.
But like we talked about, right? Like, are you comfortable going to next season? with having Beck or Kapanen replacing Dvorak. If let's say they think Dvorak, because that's the thing, right? I would have signed Dvorak months ago, but now nobody had Dvorak in their top 50 UFAs 2 weeks ago. But now people are saying he's one of the top three centers left as a UFA. So all of a sudden, Dvorak is going to be a way hotter commodity than he was 2 weeks ago. So
Uh,
if Montreal decides that they don't want to go into next season and they want to have at least one left-handed shot, they may not be able to afford Dvorak anymore. And don't forget, Coach, we haven't talked at all about Montreal's cap situation. They're just slightly over 1 million in cap room. So they're going to need to make some room even to add anything, right? But anyways, just a thought, like a player like David Kempf, not as a second line center, but at
yeah,
least
I
a
understand.
left-handed.
But for me, it's like we have to, because think about this guy here, Marco. You guys, you bring this to me, and I was thinking about this, but I didn't mention that. But why Mike Matheson would like to play on the? I just give you what you just tell me, right? Why Mike Matheson would accept to play on the third line, on the third pairing?
Well, he likes it. He likes it in Montreal. Like there's no
Yeah,
question.
but
His
honestly, he would prefer to play somewhere else to have more time, everything like that. The point when you bring to
sure.
me, my point is behind that. If you don't open spot, Pascal Vincent talked about this. He said if Montreal Canadiens does not open spot, it gave some hope. And they said the other players at Laval, they look up, right? They look at the ladder and say, wait, and they bring another player from outside the organization, another player from outside the organization. When are we going to have a chance to go up? And I think
That's
this is
pretty
what
easy
the
to
Montreal
explain.
want to be careful about that. I think Ken Hughes talk about this too. He says we
Yeah,
have to open spot for the players coming from Laval. Whatever is maybe not the right things, but I think this is what they try to accomplish Montreal at some point.
but
That's what I
but it's
feel like
easy.
they will not going to go outside to look down the
Well, you
bottom
have to,
sticks.
but you have to, Coach, because like it's an easy conversation to have with Owen Beck or with Kapanen by saying, unless you can shoot left, then I'm sorry, like that's the spot we have open. We have an organizational need for a left-handed center. So it's not that we're prioritizing outside players over you. It's an organizational need. We needed to go get a left-handed center. So you don't have internal solutions for a left-handed center, Coach. Like you just
You have
don't.
New Hook right now.
No, he's not a center. Like he can't play center.
He played
He can't.
center
He
most
did.
40 game last
Yeah,
season.
but it was Yeah, but he should. Sorry, he shouldn't play center. He can't win faceoffs. So let me be more specific. We need a left-handed shot faceoff specialist is an organizational need. Somebody who is strong in the faceoffs to win defensive zone draws. That's an organizational need. We lost Dvorak, guys. It's a big loss from our roster last year. It's an organizational need that we've identified that we are now short a left shot center who is proficient on faceoffs. So we don't have that internally. Newhook, you're right. You have historically played center. Unfortunately, though, like just look at your faceoff numbers. This is not something that we're comfortable doing. To me, like he's with Newhook. The conversation you have with Newhook, coach, is very similar that you had with Josh Anderson last year. Listen, Martin Saint Louis goes to Newhook and says, "Listen, we really liked what you did last year, Nui. I think that's his nickname. Nui, last year, our focus with you was convincing you that your speed is not only an asset to create offense, but also as a defensive player to close gaps, to pressure pucks. You did a great job buying into that for us last year. We saw that you really, really bought into that and you really improved your game. We're going to take that to the next level this year. We're giving you a really, really important job on the team. You're going to be on our first unit PK with Jake Evans. You're going to be the first two forwards out every time we're killing a penalty. We lost Yoel Armia last year, who had that role. So this year, like Josh Anderson did last year, look how beneficial it was to him to have a focus. Your focus this year is I want you to focus on 5-on-5. You're going to get the points that you get. Don't freak out. The points will come, but we really need you to focus in on that role. That's a conversation I'm having with Alex Newhooks next year. So to me, yeah, we can talk like there's players like Nosek, there's Faxa, there
But
are
you
some
cannot
other
bring another
options.
fourth center, Marco. This is the problem
Why?
I have with that part. You cannot bring another Jake Evans in the team.
Well, but you don't have another Jake. Like you don't have a left-handed shot. Jake Evans, like guys, I'm sorry to break it to you, but unless something changes, Jake Evans is now Montreal's third line center. He's going to be playing third line center minutes next year, right? So unless
No,
they
he would
bring in
not play
somebody that's
third
going
line center for Montreal. He would be a four line center.
I don't think so.
I'm
I
telling you
don't
right
think
now,
so.
you guys, you said that to me. I will tell you right now for all of you guys. If the team is like this, it's going to be Zuski, Dak, Newhook, and Evans.
No way. Newhook is not playing center again. I would be shocked.
I'm telling you right now, that's going to happen this way.
Well, hey, you're right. If they can't go out and get another left slash center, then they won't have a choice, right?
Yeah,
So I
I
guess
agree
in a
with you.
sense you're right,
I agree with what you said, right? We need
but I don't
at
think that.
least a minimum a third line, Marco. If you want to get a left shoulder, they cannot use a left center at the four line. Do you understand what I tried to explain to
Why?
you?
Why? Why?
Because we already have Jake Evans.
That doesn't make it so. It doesn't matter to me. Like the third and fourth lines are going to be like. Here's like let's say nothing changed. Let's say Montreal got. We'll just say Radek Faxa, okay? Just as an example, okay? Montreal decides that they want to replace Dvorak, so they go get one like a Radek Faxa. To me, this is how the lines would be. So you'd have Suzuki, if nothing changes, right? Suzuki with Caulfield and Slav. On the second line, assuming everybody's healthy, you would have Doc, Line, and Demidov. Or you could do Doc Anderson and Demidov. Okay, that's one option. Then your third line, Evans, Anderson, and Newhook, or Evans, Line, and Newhook. And then your fourth line would be Faxa with Gallagher and Roy or whoever else you want to put out there. That to me, that's how I would see it playing out. Newhook on the wing, on the third line is how I would see it. To me, that third and fourth line, those are the lines that you want. Like it probably would make more sense to have Line with Doc and with Demidov because then at least your bottom two, your bottom nine are going to be starting most of the play when you're starting in the defensive zone. They're going to be your reliable kind of like defensive lines that you would have out there, right? So to me, it doesn't matter if the left-handed shot is second line, third line, or fourth line. They just need one. But the guy that they get has to be able to take zones in the defensive draw or in the defensive zone, right? So to me, it makes more sense in a way to get that left. Like ideally, we would get two new centers, and two would be left-handed. So you have two right and two left. That would be the ideal. But to me, the most important thing is the left shot center that they get has to be a face-off specialist that you trust defensively on the PK and at the end of the game, or when you're having defensive zone draws. To me, that's so important. So
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 Hamlin
important.
said, why not to keep Dvorak?
Well, I've been Hamlin. Like, if you were following us, I've been talking since last summer that I've been looking at what was available for free agents. Everybody, I am watching us.
The only,
We're
the only,
throwing tomatoes at me all year. All
the,
year they're throwing tomatoes at me because Dvorak obviously was underperforming. But you could it was like a slow moving car crash. You could see which free agents were going to be available this year. You can see what Montreal has in its prospect pool in terms of left-handed centers. And I've been saying it here for like over a year that there's the left-handed centers that were going to be available to replace Dvorak are not as good as him. And Montreal probably could have signed him and extended him at a much better deal. Because right now, if you ask me, like, this is probably the least confident that I've been that Montreal was going to re-sign Dvorak because he's now one of the top three top centers available in as a UFA as a center. So it is what it is. Like we Montreal kind of missed their window to buy low on Dvorak. It's going to be very hard for them to do that.
I think the only one right now is available is Sutter.
Yeah, Suter is like, his doesn't have the same face-off percentage. He's a very productive player. I think his numbers are a little bit misleading because Vancouver used him often in the top six when Miller was out, and he played a lot in the top six, right? But I don't think anybody's signing Suter to be a top six center. But if you look at his face-off percentage, if I'm not like, I don't know if you have it in front of you, Coach, but I don't think it's
42.7 last year, 49
yeah,
before
yeah,
that, 46 is a bit,
yeah.
49. But pay attention, guys. I have to check again. The average post face-off this year in NHL was really low. Like, you don't
Yeah,
have a
that's what
lot.
I'm saying.
I think I have to check again. I think you have 50, maybe not 54. I don't know how many center have only 50 plus, Marco. It was not high at all.
I know. So that's exactly right. So, but it's extremely valuable, and sometimes it's not like, you have to look at the metrics too, right? Um, some face-off wins are more important than others. Like if you have like a 52% face-off percentage, but you lose 60% of your draws in your defensive zone, then it's not important. Where Dvorak was very good is, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if you look at his face-off percentage in the D zone, it was very good, like over 50%.
Yeah, it
So
was
to me,
better. Like
that's a
he's at 52, 55 on that
yeah,
area of the game.
yeah, yeah. So and like I've said before, Coach, like it doesn't seem like a big deal, right? But Montreal made the playoffs by 1 point, 1 point, and it's very, very small differences like that. One penalty that you don't kill, one face-off that you lose, one missed coverage at the end of a game, whatever it is, it's going to be missed, and it's going to be something that Montreal needs to figure out. But it's not easy. So Radek Faxa is a potential solution. He's barely 50%. Noshek, who just won the Stanley Cup with the Florida Panthers, he's an option. Pretty decent face-off guy, but there's not a lot. And they're not going to bring you the same. I don't think they bring as many things as Dvorak did, even though he was not a very well-liked player in Montreal. There's going to be elements of his game that Montreal is going to have a hard time replacing right now.
Well, you're right about that. We'll be interesting what happening for sure. This is another, this is another. Tomorrow night we'll be back at 8:30 tomorrow night, guys. We'll to do a preview of what Montreal is looking for. But this is the kind of decision, Marco. Not only the second center, but also possible the third center. They have to figure out something, or a bottom six left shoulder. They have to get a center left shoulder. But if it's second center is a right, they have to go the best to get. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's like Bernie is a right shoulder. I think he is, but I could be wrong. But my point
Who?
behind that,
Who?
Maddie
Who?
Bernie
Oh no, he's left. He's left
is
shooter. Yeah.
left. So my point behind, if they get a good center, a second center right, they would take him. Right? It's not you have to be a left to get that player. That's my point behind that, and they have to figure out honestly a left. It's a bit my point early, guys. You cannot start the season with Rebecca that did not start. You cannot start the season with no left center. Whatever the left center is only 48 to 49%. Marco,
I wouldn't group those two things together, Coach. Like, I agree that they can't start the season without a left shot center. Well, again, they could play Newhook there. Just don't expect that it's going to work super well, and they're going to lose faceoffs in the defensive zone and all that stuff, right? Reinbacher, again, you don't know that to be a fact. Like, you have to let his training camp happen, and we'll see what happens. Like,
my
nobody's
point,
that's
Marco,
the
is
like
like
you
you
said,
you thinking it's enough for him to play in NHL after he did not miss he missed 2 seasons in the hockey.
for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's to me that has absolutely nothing to do with it. Like playing 12 to 14 minutes in the NHL, killing penalties, playing role. And again, like there might be, if he starts to play well, then Carrier gets bumped down, right? Like to me, like it just having that experience playing in the NHL is much more valuable than play. Like their coach, like in the AHL, the players aren't as good. I would much rather, if I have a top 5 elite, potential elite defenseman that I drafted 5th overall, I would much prefer, like if he's not going to just survive, that's the difference, right? Nothing is saying we talks about this. If you're just surviving, then you should go back a level. So I don't want to see Reinbacher survive. I want him to start slow, okay, have a very specific role, like I said, do the easy plays, look for your spots. You don't need to be flashy, just come in and do your job. And then over time, just having that experience around the team, to me, I have absolutely no problem doing that. But listen, we'll see kind of how it plays out. He could have a
Last
terrible
question,
camp.
Marco, if you don't mind to leave with that one. Last rumor, Matheson versus RNH.
Yeah, like Edmonton's going to need to do something, right? Like they're going to run out of room. Again, like RNH is certainly like a top 6 quality player. He's mostly played on the wing over the last 5 years. He does play center when they decide to reunite Draisaitl and McDavid, but his face-off percentage is not amazing either. But listen, I wouldn't be mad at it for sure. Like I think it's definitely a potential solution. Very reasonable contract. How many years does he have left? 3 years left, and he's
No,
what, like
4 years. I just checked early.
okay. And how old is he? He's 30.
31.
Yeah. So I don't know about that. Like I don't. That's kind of a bit long for me in terms of term. He's not the best skater either. Like I'm a little nervous
He's
about
32 right
going
now.
with
I apologize. 32. And he has 4 more
and
years to
4 years.
go. And the
Yeah.
problem, he said, is speed of the game.
Yeah. So if he had 2 years left, I would do it, but 4 years is too long for me. Unless Edmonton's retaining, but I don't think they would do that.
Others are not trading RNH. Just it has a great contract. It is a little bit and little lifetime. Yeah, for that you agree. You have a good contract for sure. Like Mike Benson have a good contract. Mike Benson out for live. Thanks so much to the new subscriber. Marco, if Mike Benson have 3 more years contract or 2 more years, is a good contract at 4.7. Mike Madison to be attractive in NHL at some point. I think the others need to figure out. I know it's not you hear that, but they need to find maybe to trade Darnell Nurse at some point.
Well, I see some people saying that Edmonton's never going to trade RNH. Well, the likelihood that they would ever be able to move Darnell Nurse is even less likely, right? But
Well, they have to
like
remain
again,
the
like I said,
money like Chicago did, but it's
yeah,
hurting right now.
maybe,
It's hurting the
maybe
owners. It does not play at the level of nine
it
point
is.
twenty five million dollars.
Yeah, like we said, like for anybody who didn't catch us earlier when we were talking about the Oilers, like it's Stan Bowman and coach asked me earlier kind of what my reaction was to David McDavid not having conversations and some of his comments in the in their postmortem. Like if I'm him, I'm staying put. I'm waiting to see what Stan Bowman does because it's not an easy job to kind of recalibrate this lineup with Bouchard's contract coming, and they're going to move out Arvidsson for sure, but that's not going to change the game too much. I think he's around 4 million at the very most, so it's not going to move the needle that much. So you're right, like Darnell Nurse is it's an absolute anchor on kind of what they want to do there, but that's a very hard conversation. And Edmonton's just running out of assets, right? Like there's Savoie that they have, but they don't have a lot of. I believe they don't have their first round picks next year either. So there's not a lot of options here for Stan Bowman. So he's going to need to get creative and really kind of try to rework some of that lineup. Should be interesting.
I think for me they have to keep McDavid there because that's the only reason they return them back to back with Draisaitl at the Stanley Cup. And I don't know how they manage this with a goalie like Skinner, and then those kind of players like that, and they figure out to go all the way. Imagine if it was a bit more structured better, that team could win a
Yeah.
City Cup at some point for sure. But
So,
look,
Coach, before we go here, like Kenneth is asking, like I guess he's, some people may have tuned in waiting to hear kind of our thoughts on what targets we had for our second line center. So, Kenneth, I don't want you leaving the stream thinking that we didn't give you what you wanted or that we didn't address it. So, we did talk about a couple options. So, one of them, we just finished talking about Malkin. I think that would be a interesting fit. So if you missed that part, we were just talking about Malkin. He's going to be UFA at the end of the year. Maybe Pittsburgh is one of the rare teams that's looking to actually move pieces out. So notice I didn't mention Crosby. I think we all would love that, but I wouldn't bet the farm on that. There's I think a lot of thought to that Crosby would want to maybe pick somewhere where he has a bit higher of a chance to win a Stanley Cup, right? Some other guys that we mentioned, because again we're focused on left-handed shots as a potential center. So I brought up Barrett Hayton from Utah, 50 to 60 point guy, over 50% in the faceoff dot last year. I think with everything happening in Utah, maybe it's an expendable piece. Earlier, somebody brought up the fact that Kent Hughes talked about that it's not necessary that the second line center be the guy that drive play necessarily on your second line. If you were to put a guy like Bretton Hayden with Patrick Laine and Demidov, if he can come out of there with 50, 55 points, but be a good 200-foot player, win faceoffs, and go dig out the puck for those guys, I think that's good, and probably wouldn't be super expensive for Montreal to do that. He fits into their timeline, so interesting option there. I don't think we're looking at we're not going to talk about daydream players like McTavish. I think we all love McTavish, but we're not going to really kind of put guys like that out there. Coach, did you have any other kind of left-handed centers that you
I'll be
were kind of
interested what could
targeting?
happen with Seattle Kraken. Um,
Yeah.
this is a team I don't say right, but maybe McCann or Bernie, if the right fit happen over there,
Mm.
they need push in the back on the defensive side. I think there will be a team maybe looking for that team over there. I know people talk about McDavid, should be talking that. I don't see that. Key guys,
No.
no answer. For me right now, my best option is Thomas Erdo.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, Thomas Hurdle, and again, William Carlson would be another good fit. So we're closely monitoring that situation with Vegas. If this rumor about uh, Vegas trading Nicholas Watt to Toronto as part of the opportunity for Marner to sign an 8-year deal, that would be terrible news for the Montreal Canadiens, because Toronto would then be relieving that pressure that Vegas has to sign Marner. So hopefully that doesn't happen, and that's a trade partner that Montreal could work with for a guy. Yeah.
And also, they already now Peter and Jalo on the maybe all year long. So with that, they don't need to trade anybody,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
But they're still going to need to replace Peter Angelo, right? So they're still going to need, so if they spend that money on Marner, they still need to work on their
But you're not going to
defense.
get a right defenseman like a big number there.
No, no, but like they're still going to need to get somebody, right? So it still could be, they're still going to need to move out money. I think and for people who mentioned McCann coach, like to me, I put him in the same category as as a Dawson Mercer guy. Like, yes, he has played center, but I view him more as a winger. So, you know, again, just looking at players just because they have a little C next to their name on NHL.com, go back and look at how many faceoffs they taken. Like, you can go on daily faceoff and you can look at the team they played on, and you can see the different line combinations they had throughout the year and see how often they actually played center versus just being listed as a center. McCann is a great again, great top six player, potential to score 30 goals a year, but not really a 200-foot player. Like, to me, like, again, it's like the optimal fit to me is like a slightly less productive Nick Suzuki, right? Like a good 200-foot center that's left-handed, like as a Barrett Hayton kind of guy. I think is what I would be targeting. Somebody that has some good like understands playing with good players, but is going to complement players like Line and Demidov. That's what I would be looking for sure.
I know his contract is big, a little bit at 5.7, but I think Igor Sharekovich could be an option.
Again, do you really think he's a center coach? Are you
Yeah,
willing? Is he? How many minutes did he actually play center, like with Calgary? Like,
the
and what
last
was
three
his
years
face-off?
he's a center with them.
No, he played mostly wing.
And then you have Connor Zary.
Well, he's played wing so far. Like, has he played center before? But he's not a proven NHL
They
center.
put him on the center left wing, but I don't know exactly the number of the minutes
No,
they were there.
that's so again. Like, you have to like in order to really know. My advice, if you're hockey geeks like us and you really want to see, you can go to Daily Face Off. They have a whole bunch of different features. Like I go there a lot during hockey pool because you can see line combinations and how like what percentage of time different line mates have played together, and you can go track that, right? So
Yeah, one's
just
called a
because somebody's
double hockey pound, something like that.
Dauber,
Yeah, Dobber, whatever the rest,
yeah,
and you get
yeah,
all those line game by game. You have exactly those kind of minutes, like you just mentioned to
yeah,
you
yeah.
about
Cash
that.
fan is asking about Steven Stamkos. I don't think you go anywhere near that deal, cash fan. Like, I don't think I'd want to touch that. Like, just too long of a term. Stamkos can play center again. Like, there's a reason why Tampa Bay didn't extend him to that kind of deal, and you saw kind of how well things went in Nashville last year. So just too long of a term. I don't think Kent Hughes is going to go sign a guy in his 30s that's like signed for like 6 years. Like it's very similar to Patrick Laine last year. The only reason they went and got Laine and made that trade, he only had 2 years left on his deal. Like you're saying, Coach, they don't want to kind of either they're going to get a guy like Dobson who fits perfectly and they don't mind paying a lot and locking in somebody long term for a player like that because he fits their timeline. But a player like Stamkos, again, like just round peg in a square
He's
hole. So
at
it's just not
$8 million. That's just a lot of money,
yeah, and too long. Like
and you
he's
show on
got
the right
another
side too.
yeah, exactly. So just not a fit. Not a
Thanks
fit
so much,
for
Maurice. He liked the show, of course, because my Marco is with me. That's the reason, Maurice, about that. So, Marco, hopefully see you during the week at some point. If you want to come back, just
yeah,
let me know about that. We have the
for sure.
UFAs coming too. We'll be busy for the beginning, and then we'll go to review this or the after that. So, anytime you will let me know. And I think it
Yeah.
was a really good show today. A lot of new people. Amlin is talking in the chat. I will go see guys with you a little bit more longer, but I don't want to hold Marco all the night. So, great, Marco. Thanks
Thanks,
so
guys.
much. I look forward to seeing you during the week, everything like that. I appreciate that.
Have a good week, guys. Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Marco Larabi from Hawkesbury, guys, delivering a lot of great comments tonight. It was a great, solid show tonight. I know. I can understand all of you talk about Mike Matheson, everything like that, but I just feel for me, if I don't get the right players, I will not trade Mike Matheson only because we have to trade Mike Matheson. This is my point of view about that. I still believe Rebecca is not ready. I still believe Rebecca need one more year, at least a couple of months in Laval. Mayu is not ready, and we don't have anybody else. So for me, I keep there. I don't think we be necessary. We don't need to bring Cody CC guys or Renta, whatever it is, guys. I don't want that. I don't want that at all. So, but we'll be interested what's going to happening about that for sure. On the next show is about Mike Madison, yeah, well, with Mr. and hand just like on the Civic, exactly about that. Thompson audio. Let's go, and will be an interesting today's a great keep Madison GF about that Mayu and Montreal this year. Again, Rebecca Mayu and Engstrom. I don't see that ready for Montreal Canadiens. Now, everything could happen at the training camp. They play amazing, but for me, keep the security of Mike Madison. until the trade deadline, and you can trade him and Christmas like they trade Justin Barron if you have to. And I can understand the situation with Jekai is trouble, but there's still one more year before they figure out that. And then one Rebecca is ready. Not only Mike Matheson, but I see Jaden Trouble could be traded at some point too. But we have to wait a little bit longer. I don't know if Ren and Angel would be traded, but is one of the Montreal asked for decision with Edmonton. Yeah, but still, 32 years old, $6 million. His skating is so. It's not the ideal, but I can see that at some point. At this level, I would prefer Michael Granlund, guys. You don't have to make a trade. Just sign Michael Granlund, same age. And Granlund are pretty good. He's just only small, 5'10". But for transition wise, I don't know. That'll be a question about that. Tomorrow night, I will be back at 8:30 p.m. Tomorrow night, we drop a little bit the trade for the Montreal Canadiens. We're going to preview what's coming for the Montreal Canadiens, but also the UFA. We're going to see. We're going to be 12 hours before the UFA start. We're going to get a lot of rumor left and right, and we'll be live tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. And then we'll be live for the UFA at 12 o'clock afternoon. That will be back Tuesday night for review of the day number 1 of the UFA. So a couple of more days for me to be live, and then after that we're going to slow down a little bit for the rest of July. The Montreal Canadiens camp's coming. Rookie camp is coming in July too. We expect to see Konishkov, Zarabsky. He tried to be there. Dimitrov could be there. We don't have no first round pick, so they're not going to be there. But you're going to see a couple of players like Paponikis. And I apologize, guys. We were supposed to talking about the Montreal Canadiens draft players. If you watch my video today, you're going to learn more about those players, who they are. I think my video was pretty good on that one. I give you a little bit more, but I'm going to give you, promise you tomorrow night, guys, at the beginning to talk about the rookie, the prospect Montreal select during the weekend. And that'll give you a little bit more an idea who they are. I really work on that during the last couple of days. And I can give you pretty good assessment about who they are, what it's going to be. I'm really excited about Zavroski. If you watch those videos, guys, the kids, he has hands, and he can put in the chat there. New subscriber, guys, Bobby from Montreal, welcome in the house. Thanks so much. Au Grenland, gave pass to Thompson. Frankie Ren have a 5.1 per year. Yeah, there's a 5.7, I believe. I just checked this. I don't want to go again, you, Frankie, but I think it was yeah, you're right, a 5.1, but he's still at 4 years, so he's going to be 37 years old at the end of his contract. One of Montreal Canadiens tried to go there. I don't see Montreal to have a key major players like Thompson, 25 years old. Montreal get a center, guys. My opinion is going to be between 23 years old to 28 years old. I could be wrong. I'm wrong a lot. But if Montreal get the center they're looking for, this is what I expect from Montreal Canadiens. You cannot get an INH, a 4-year deal at 32 years old. You're going to stop and block the development of Montreal Canadiens. I could be wrong again, but we'll see what's happening about that. Zeph, welcome back also. Moni is a good player, small but good. Zaki is really good. Yeah, now people talk about me. Moni is never going to make the NHL is 5'7". I can understand that, guys. But the kid is skilled. The kid is hockey IQ is at the level of Suzuki. He play hard for the 5'7", a little bit like a Simono. He played. I don't know what would be his next step, and an American colleague is going to be in the NCAA next year. We're going to follow up. I think is with Minnesota, but I could be wrong. I don't like it when I don't have the right answer in my head. I don't have NHL. Um, Let me, guys, to give you that name if you don't mind. Um, I know it's not fun to let you that way. There we go, Minnesota. I was right. Minnesota go far next season, so this is a player going to fall out for sure. But he's very small. Dreaming for Nikash. How about that? Who's he too small? 5'9", 5'10". I'm not sure if will happen, guys. Um, for Marco Rossi. Minnesota asked a lot in return, by the way. And Martin Nikash, guys, he could be a very good player. But is demanding playtime, contract extension, not happy Carolina, not happy with Colorado. What's next? You have a player like him, Pierre Dubois, Patrick Laney. I really like Martin Nikash. I think he could be a good solid player for Montreal. But Montreal does not need those kind of character, on my opinion. But I could be wrong about that. Ren McLeod at 6'3", 195, shoot left over 50 per point RFA. Good point about that, Ren. What I like for Ren McLeod also, Tony, is a great skater. He skates fast. He's great on the transition. It would be a good fit for the Montreal Canadiens for sure. Up to Patia soon. Let me know, Maurice, if you're coming in my area. Kenneth also, let me know. And we appreciate a lot, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the show tonight. Great performance from Marco with us. You guys, you rocked the shot tonight. You people like Sean, Corey, and many others, guys. It was really well done by all of you. As you can have the update news, we have Ron with Kane. Joe, he was with us also tonight, and many others, guys. We wish you an amazing, great evening. And ready for the upcoming week, the UF3 on the market for the Montreal Canadiens. Christmas time. I believe Rick DiPietro has still have one more year of his money, but I think it was done last year. I cannot remember. But we'll see about that. Thanks so much, Pete Martin. Don't forget, guys, to click on the likes. I think missing 1 or 2 to get 70 likes. The only reason this channel is growing, you are awesome. You are amazing. You are the best. And remember, you have greatness inside of you. It was a great night on the cheese last night. I did not go out for the week. And last night it was raining. I didn't want to do anything. I was walking. I was like, hey, I did a lot of work this weekend. 29 hours, 30 hours of work. And Friday, and I said, you know what? I have to go to the gym. So I left the condo, and I was at the gym at 10:20 p.m. I get out at 11:30 after I take my shower, and I said I have to go to the stop at the cheese, and I stopped there until 4 o'clock a.m. It was a great night. New people. New conversation, old cheese, new cheese. It's okay. Until then, my friend, be well, be healthy. Find a way not only dominate your day, but find a way to dominate the first half of what? We're almost there at the second half. Someone said 2025. Thanks so much, everybody, to be part of the show tonight. I wish you an amazing, great night. And of course, the Hockey National Show and the Am Nation in all the cheese and tell them. I want to tell you one more thing, sir. We love you, friends. Have a great night, everybody. Cap Cook Cap. Audrey, Zeph, Nicola, Pete, Billy, Ken, Peter, Maurice, Mark. Here we go. It's coming. Booyah!